Not Chapter 261, The Battle of New York, 6. The helicarrier was still under attack. With Tony on the scene, the debate wouldn't stop, and it was almost the same as the plot. Perhaps Loki had already anticipated that S.H.I.E.L.D. would invite Bruce Banner. After all, there are not many who can track gamma signals, and Dr. Banner is the only one who has been directly exposed to gamma rays and is still alive. Loki, as always, wanted to use Dr. Banner to dismantle the helicarrier. In other words, there was no need for a Mind Stone to control Banner. As long as he was attacked, the Hulk would instinctively awaken. Hulk, who has lost his mind, would instinctively smash everything in sight, making it easy to dismantle the helicarrier. When the red alarm sounded, everything was over. Energy signal matching degree 100%. Looking at the location again, Dr. Banner's eyes widened. Oh, my God. Immediately afterwards, the explosion of high-explosive bombs sounded. Flames rushed in along with the huge wind and waves, and the few people who were arguing fiercely were blown away in an instant. The only difference was that Tony was wearing his armor this time and hadn't taken it off yet. He was also the only one who wasn't thrown out. Why? Because the skeleton of the fallen King Kong is quite hard. The wind and waves couldn't blow it away, only pushing it half a meter back. Captain America was blown out entirely. Just as he was about to stand up, a figure smashed over and quickly hugged him with both hands. 3 grams of oil, thanks, said Domino with a smile as she jumped out of Captain America's arms. The latter was a little confused, but having lived in the House of Wishes for a while, he knew about Domino's unfathomable luck. But now that she had borrowed his strength, it left him a little dumbfounded. "Peggy, are you okay?" he asked. "I'm fine," Mara replied, activating the water polo shield the moment the blast wave came in. The runes sealed with both hands lit up, and water gushed out to form a water polo, wrapping herself in it. The flames from the explosion and the shards of glass caused 0 damage. The Black Widow was a little unlucky and fell to the lower level, still with Dr. Banner. It looked like she was going to be hammered. In Karajan, Duke swore, "Damn it, I tried every means to separate you, but you actually got together again?" He really didn't understand why in Avengers 2 the two became a couple after a few words, but Duke thought the Widow's sister was deliberately misleading and fooling Banner. The hillbilly corndag finally got scared. A small cut was made on his forehead, and his head was a little dizzy. "Hill, external fuselage hit, engine now stalled," Maria Hill reported. "Can it work again?" he asked. "Engine Naustrain is on fire. The turbine seems to be fine. If we lose another engine, we will crash. We need to send someone out to repair the engine," Hill replied. "Stark, did you get it?" he asked. "I'll be right there," Tony replied. "Coulson, implement a defensive blockade in the detention area, and then go to the Army's library," Potato commanded calmly. Romanoff. "We're fine. Oh, no, Dr. Banner. Bruce, calm down, or you'll fall into Loki's hands. We'll be fine, okay? I promise my life. I'll get you out." "Guaranteed by your life." Banner turned his head suddenly. His face had turned green, and his whole body was rapidly expanding. "Oh, Banner, no." In the end, it was futile. He turned into the Hulk completely, and then chased after them. It was as if his girlfriend had cheated on him, and he was chasing after her in a manly manner. Banner was locked in the small black room, but was surprised to find that he finally did not fall asleep. It felt like being locked in a small black room and watching the CCTV outside. On Skull Island, his various trainings had never achieved this effect. Each time he could only hold it for 2 or 3 seconds before fainting. He really didn't expect it, but now it was actually done. But now he was not happy, because the compatriots. Outside, people were suffering from his persecution. He frantically hammered on the walls of the small dark room, but unfortunately he still couldn't get out. He suddenly realized that he could not break through Hulk's blockade. He also understood the meaning of Duke's words. If Hulk's IQ rises, then the blockade against him will become stronger. At that time, he feared he would be permanently locked in the small dark room, never to escape. Duke had given him the next stage of training, which was to break through Hulk's blockade and escape the small, dark room. He was working hard, but unfortunately, it didn't seem to be very effective. After a frantic struggle, the Black Widow was punched and hit the wall hard, as if her bones had cracked. "Sorry," Seeing the Black Widow being blown away, Banner silently apologized. He understood that his current mental strength was not strong enough to break through Hulk's blockade. Only when Banner was slack or exhausted could he rush out of the small, dark room. Just when Hulk was about to pounce on the Black Widow and complete his attack, a figure flew over and tackled Hulk, pushing him to the other side. Leaning against the wall, the Black Widow finally breathed a sigh of relief. With a loud bang, a beauty in jeans jumped down. It was Mara. "Are you okay?" Mara asked. "It's nothing serious, it seems. My bone is broken," the Black Widow said, clutching her right ribs and gritting her teeth. "Let me see." Mara raised her hand to touch the right side of the Black Widow. Being a woman herself, she could do this without hesitation. If it were another man, she would have broken his hand in an instant. The Black Widow's eyes gradually widened as she felt a stream of water in her right rib. It was a strange sensation, crunchy, numb, a little painful, like tiny ants moving. After a minute, Mara withdrew her hand. "Okay, I've reconnected your split ribs. As long as you don't receive a high-intensity blow like Banner's, they generally won't split again. In about an hour, you will be fully healed." Duke had been developing Mara's ability to control water and had also taught her a magic that seemed like hydrotherapy, which she had just used. In fact, it was not a spa, but a shaman's natural skill, milk sha. Therefore, Mara now not only controlled water, but also had abilities related to fire, wind, and other elements. Of course, water was still her primary element and had been significantly strengthened. "Thank you," the Black Widow said sincerely, feeling the pain in her right rib disappear. "You take a break first. I have to go up and check on things." With that, Mara propelled herself to the upper floor with the force of water and disappeared. The Black Widow sighed secretly. The people in Karazhan were extraordinary. At the same time, she was puzzled. Duke hadn't shown up, but had arranged for his woman to handle things. Why? Wasn't he worried something might happen to her? Although her strength did seem to be very formidable, Duke must be watching the battle from somewhere, right? End of this chapter. Chapter 262, Battle of New York, 7. Note, the chapter title is incorrect. It should be Battle of New York. Due to the editor working from home and being quite tired, I didn't want to disturb her. Let's proceed with the chapter as long as everyone understands. On the upper level, Maria Hill was still commanding calmly. "We need to clear the lower aircraft storage." Just then, a grenade rolled in and stopped right in front of Maria Hill. Maria Hill was shocked. Boom! Before she could warn anyone, the grenade exploded, but no one was injured. The moment the grenade detonated, a stream of water suddenly rushed over, encapsulating the grenade. The sound of the explosion was muffled to a mere "gudu." Maria Hill was surprised by the lack of an explosion and turned her head to look. "It's you?" "You're welcome." Mira smiled and waved her hand. The soldiers who had broken in were puzzled as to why the grenade didn't explode. Despite their confusion, they charged in anyway. Bang, 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 bang! The hillbilly corned eggs, being veterans, dispatched each soldier with a single bullet. Over. Good marksmanship. Mira gave a thumbs up. At that moment, another explosion sounded. Boom! Barton! The country bumpkin frowned and raised his hand a few times. Unfortunately, Barton had completed his mission and successfully evacuated. "We're out of control and descending." "Engine number 1 is out of order, sir." "Barton destroyed our system. He's heading to the detention area. Has anyone heard it?" The country bumpkin shouted through the communicator. Mira smiled, shaking the water droplets from her hand. "Do you need me to get rid of him?" At that moment, the Black Widow stood up. "No need. I'm Romanoff. Received." "Oh, is it you? Duke told me your story. Okay, I'll leave it to you, but make sure to beat him up," Mira joked. "Of course. I'll beat him so badly that even his wife won't recognize him," the Black Widow snorted coldly. She wasn't angry at Mira's teasing, but was genuinely furious. Furious that Barton was controlled and caused so many incidents, and furious that he was controlled so easily. The two had worked together countless times. He wasn't someone who admitted defeat easily, but this time, he lost. Although she knew it was due to external forces, she still felt a sense of hate iron but not steel. Moreover, many agents were killed by Barton's hands. Although it was Loki's doing, she really wanted to beat Barton up. However, how did Duke know about her and Barton? It seemed she would have to ask him about it later. Dr. Banner was still blown out, flying in a parabola into the distance. After a fight, the Black Widow knocked out Barton with a punch. It seems I'm not needed here anymore. I'm going to the detention area to deal with Loki. Mira smiled, turning to walk out. Domino, come on. Coming, Domino replied. Watching Mira leave, the country bumpkin frowned. He always felt like he was part of Duke's design, and this feeling was quite uncomfortable. Mira's timing was impeccable. Thor had just rushed over and was tricked by the cunning Loki, ending up locked in the glass cage. When Mira entered, she was a little speechless. Thor had already made a considerable crack in the glass with his hammer. A few more hits, and it would have shattered, allowing him to escape. Instead, he chose to chat with the cunning Loki. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you out of your mind? Just as Loki was about to hit the button to drop Thor, Phil Coulson appeared with a special weapon, taking aim. Do you like it? Coulson asked. Since you sent the destroyer, we've started to develop it. I don't know what it can do. Want to find out? Wait, this isn't Loki. It must be one of his illusions. Sure enough, as Coulson was about to activate the destroyer howitzer, a figure appeared behind him, stabbing forward with a scepter in hand. At that critical moment, Coulson— yes, it fell. The howitzer in his hand must have been too heavy, causing his body to crash to the ground with a resounding bang, making Loki's sure-kill blow miss its mark. Well done, Domino, Mara smiled, recognizing that Domino's luck had come in handy. At the same time, a stream of water from his left hand pulled Coulson to his side. Almost simultaneously, his right hand threw a wooden stake. Yes, a wooden stake. It was as long as a forearm and as thick as 2 arms, wrapped with strange dark green vines. The wooden stake landed at Loki's feet. Almost immediately, Loki seemed to be bound by gravity and couldn't move. What is this? Loki exclaimed. Trapped totem, Mara smiled. Trapped totem. Summon a totem at the target location for 20 seconds, immobilizing all enemies within 8 meters for 8 seconds. Subsequently, enemies affected by it will no longer be rooted by the totem, but their movement speed will be reduced by 50% for 12 seconds. Loki felt as if he was bound, unable to move. That's good. Coulson was about to attack again. Wait a minute. Mara clapped his left hand to block Coulson and simultaneously threw out another totem with his right hand. Loki's eyes widened instantly. This totem was different from the previous one. It was much thinner, half the thickness of a forearm, with a rhombus-shaped blue gem-like object on top, crackling with lightning. Loki realized something was wrong. Sure enough, at the same moment when the immobilization was released, this ominous totem exploded. Zila! Lightning Surge Totem summons a totem at the target location, gathers electric energy from the surrounding air, explodes after 2 seconds, and stuns enemies within 8 meters for 5 seconds. Under the impact of the exploding lightning, Loki instantly sat down on the ground, falling backward in a daze. I can't fall. I'm so tired. I can't fall. I'm sleepy. In the end, he still fell down, sprawling on the ground on his back. This. Coulson was a little confused. Domino clapped her hands excitedly. It's really fun. Is this the ability of a shaman? She knew that Duke inherited Mara's magical talent, called shaman, but unfortunately, she had never seen Mara use it. Now that she saw it, it was really interesting. Yes, Mara also smiled, then threw out another totem. After all, 5 seconds passed quickly. This totem was the same thickness and size as the trapped totem, but on top was the skull of a strange creature, seemingly stained with blood, looking very sinister. 5 seconds passed, the dizzy effect disappeared, and Loki suddenly opened his eyes. Just as he was about to jump back, the totem activated again. Puff! Quack! Voodoo Totem. Summon a totem at the target location for 10 seconds. The totem will hex all enemies within 8 meters, turning them into frogs and paralyzing them from attacking or casting spells. Domino. End of this chapter. Chapter 263, The Battle of New York. Everyone. 3 faces were stunned. Mera was also a little confused. It was the first time she used the voodoo totem, and she didn't expect the effect to be like this. Thor had all kinds of black lines on his forehead. His younger brother had turned into a frog and was now bouncing and croaking. Thor was embarrassed, and Loki was even more so, feeling humiliated as he croaked angrily. No matter how hard he struggled, He couldn't control his body and was reduced to a toad crawling on the ground in shame. "Ah! I'm going to kill you, Loki thought furiously. "Hey, I'm starting to prepare." Mira patted Coulson next to her. "Oh!" Coulson understood instantly and turned on the destroyer howitzer again. The barrel instantly turned red. There was a limit to the time of the totem, and it only took a few seconds to be ready to fire. Seeing this, Loki panicked. Although he couldn't control his body and could only jump around on the ground, he was aware of what was happening outside. The 10 seconds passed quickly. Just as the brilliance flashed, and Loki was about to transform back into his human form, Coulson immediately pulled the trigger. With a flash of red artillery fire, Loki was blown away. "So it's so powerful," Coulson praised. "Damn!" Loki was wounded and had to run, though he didn't have any serious injuries. That woman's ability was too weird. A small stake made him completely lose control. If the other party had wanted to kill him at that time, it would have been as easy as pie. Unable to figure out the routine for the time being, he could only create illusions and leave. The ability to escape is really good, Mira curled her lips. If Loki really wants to run, few people can catch him. "Please let me out, thank you," Thor said. Coulson just wanted to manipulate, but a phantom shot him one step ahead. The glass prison fell down with a loud crash. Everyone clicked their tongues. And Loki, after finishing with Thor, the phantom disappeared. Coulson. "He won't die, right?" "This is an altitude of nearly 1,000 meters, Mira asked with her mouth wide open. She wouldn't die if she fell because she could control the water flow and make a simple wing to fly for a while. Besides, there was the ocean below. Even if she fell, it would be fine. The sea was her natural home ground. But he's Thor. He should be fine, Coulson said uncertainly. "Thor?" Domino asked curiously. "Yes, the one from Norse mythology. But in reality, he's from Asgard, the kind of god in our actual sense. Thor, the god of thunder, can control thunder and lightning and can also fly. He should be fine," Coulson explained as they walked out. Oh, Domino understood. Since entering the House of Wishes, her knowledge had broadened a lot. The upper-level intrusion had been cleaned up. The country bumpkin was still directing the treatment of the wounded. When he saw Mira and the others approaching, he asked, "Where's Loki?" "He ran away, boss. His ability to escape is too special. We couldn't keep him." Coulson shook his head. "Where's Barton?" "He was caught by Agent Romanoff and is still in a coma," the country bumpkin said. "What about the captain and Stark?" "They're fine, but Dr. Banner fell out, and his whereabouts are temporarily unknown," the country bumpkin shook his head. "If he dies, he won't die. Just don't know who he will hit." Soon, Steve and Tony arrived together. "Where's Duke?" the country bumpkin asked suddenly. The atmosphere suddenly became weird. "Duke? Are you asking me?" Mira was stunned for a moment, then looked at the country bumpkin suspiciously. "Who else? How do I know what he's doing?" "If you go to Karazhan, you'll definitely find him." Mira rolled her eyes and snorted. "If that Loki didn't want to catch me, do you think I would come to your place? I'm not interested in dealing with your mess. Let's go, Domino." Mira turned around, grabbed Domino, and jumped out of the plane. The water transformed into feathers, allowing them to descend slowly. "Hey!" The country bumpkin felt a bit embarrassed. Peggy Carter rolled her eyes in frustration and reprimanded, "You still have that sharp tongue, just like before." Braised Dan immediately looked dejected. "I just wanted to ask what Duke is doing. Who knew? After all, this was their old leader, their former boss." "I'm monitoring extraterrestrial threats, you idiot." Duke's voice suddenly came through a light curtain that appeared on the helicarrier. He was sipping coffee inside. Everyone was taken aback. "You don't look like you're monitoring extraterrestrial threats," the country bumpkin said, frowning. "Who says you can't have a cup of coffee while reading?" Duke replied with a smile. He waved his hand, and an image of the Chicago pigeon fight appeared. The Chicago pigeons have been mostly eliminated. By the way, do you know how many Decepticons are on Earth? Not all of them are gathered in Chicago. Most of those came from the moon. Everyone frowned. There are about 2 energy pillars still scattered across the Earth, each guarded by about 3,000 to 4,000 Decepticons. Let's count it as 2, which means there are more than 8,000 Decepticons scattered around the planet, almost equal to the number of Chicago pigeons. Everyone suddenly became serious. There were still so many Decepticons lurking on Earth, and so many energy columns. The country bumpkin, not an idiot, immediately realized the threat. If the royal enemy joined forces with Megatron, the remaining Decepticons would definitely be exposed. If such a force managed to seize the energy columns, they could develop a weapon that endangers Earth. At that time, another wave of danger would rise. These aren't the most dangerous. There's still a conspirator lurking on Cybertron, plotting against Earth. Tsk. I really hope she reveals herself soon, Duke laughed. Who is it? The country bumpkin asked. Does it matter to you? And you don't have time to worry about that right now. Oh, by the way, Loki is ready to open the portal. Tony, I'm sending you the coordinates, Duke said, then turned off the light curtain. A beep sounded as the communication device activated. Tony Stark's face appeared, twitching with frustration. Damn, of course, he chose my place. Cursing, Tony flew off, leaving everyone behind. Tony, wait, Tony. Steve yelled, but it was too late. Tony had already flown away. Get ready, we're leaving. This time, we must kill him. Me too, Peggy Carter shouted. Steve began, but the urgency of the situation cut him off. End of this chapter. Star Scepter, Chapter 264, The Battle of Chicago, Pigeons, 6. The camera cuts back to Chicago. Under the relentless assault of the superheroes, the leaders of the Decepticons have been systematically defeated. Megatron was decapitated by Iron Man Tony Stark. Shockwave and Drill Monster were blown up by Logan, Victor, and Samir. Soundwave was strangled by Jennifer's vine giant tree, and his pet Laserbird was incinerated by Moonfire. Barricade was pierced through by Cyclops. Shovel was blown away by Lightning Shrimp Barry. Hatchaxe was stabbed to death by Mermaid Arthur with a trident. Crankcase was burnt to a crisp by John Fireman. Unparalleled DevCon was frozen into ice cubes by Iceman Bobby and then shattered into shards by Stormgirl's Thunderbolt. Among the Decepticon leaders in Chicago, only one remains, Natural Enemy. However, Natural Enemy isn't strictly a Decepticon. The battle between Optimus Prime and Natural Enemy is still raging. Despite his age, Natural Enemy fights with undiminished ferocity. You are always the bravest, but you can never be cruel. Optimus Prime shouted, slashing wildly with his axe and sword. He struck Natural Enemy more than a dozen times, but it seemed to have little effect. In truth, Optimus Prime was holding back. He didn't want to kill his teacher, only to capture him. This decision would cost him dearly. Our planet is being reborn. Natural Enemy rolled away, dodging Optimus Prime's attacks. His shield and sword danced wildly. Taking advantage of a momentary lapse, he used his sword to deflect Optimus Prime's axe, then kicked the sword away. He turned swiftly and stabbed Optimus Prime's shoulder, forcefully disarming him. A heavy shield strike followed, slamming Optimus Prime to the ground. Natural Enemy raised his saber high and stabbed down, aiming to completely disable Optimus Prime. We used to be gods, but here, there can only be one god, Natural Enemy declared, gripping his saber with both hands, ready to decapitate Optimus Prime. At that critical moment, Wonder Woman intervened. Diana descended at high speed, striking Natural Enemy like a meteor and driving him deep into the ground. Her long sword pierced through his shoulder, chest, and out the other arm. With just one blow, she incapacitated Natural Enemy. Optimus Prime, I thought you should have your own courage, but I didn't expect. You are too naive. On the battlefield, you still want to show mercy? Diana said as she walked down slowly. He is all yours. Natural Enemy, shocked by the power of the Earth's master, realized too late the gravity of his mistake. He regretted coming to Earth, but there was no turning back. The blow had severed his core, leaving him immobile. Optimus Prime took a deep breath, stood up slowly, and picked up his orange weapon axe. Optimus Prime, no, I only wanted to ensure the survival of our race. You have to understand why I betrayed you. Natural Enemy pleaded, his only option now. You didn't betray me, you betrayed yourself. Optimus Prime replied, raising his axe high. No, Optimus Prime. Natural Enemy's plea was cut short as the battle axe fell heavily. The end of Megatron's reign came crashing down on Natural Enemy. The tomahawk slammed into his mechanical head, and with a violent yank, Optimus Prime pulled out Natural Enemy's head, along with the neck composed of mechanical parts, and threw it to the ground. Bright red blood spurted as the head hit the ground heavily. The blue eyes of natural enemy dimmed, marking the end of the battle. The light gradually dimmed and eventually disappeared, leaving the surroundings darkened. "It's over," said Diana. "Yeah, it's over," Optimus Prime nodded. "I allow you to bring his body back and dispose of it yourself." "Thank you," Diana replied. "You're welcome," Optimus Prime said. Diana nodded, then leaped into the sky with all her strength. She landed on the roof of a building, took a deep breath, and shouted, "The royal enemy is dead! Megatron is dead! All Decepticons, surrender immediately!" Her voice echoed through the city. "Surrender! Surrender! Surrender!" The Decepticons were stunned. The remaining forces were mostly mass-produced soldiers without any strong leadership. However, among them were a few minor leaders who had developed some level of intelligence, such as Noisy, Backhoe, Sidewalk, and Drag Bucket. "What should we do?" one of them asked. "Surrender?" another questioned. "Humans won't let us go. We need to leave Chicago," a third suggested. "Yes, let's spread out and break through. They are too few to stop all of us," another agreed. "Whoever gets caught is just unlucky," someone concluded. An order was issued through the Decepticon communication device to collectively escape from Chicago. Countless Decepticons began to scatter and flee in all directions. Foolish," Diana muttered, curling her lips. "Everyone, chase after them. Leave no one behind." Diana had shouted for their surrender, knowing they wouldn't comply. With their leaders dead, the Decepticons left in Chicago would eventually be cleaned up. However, there were still over 200 million people in Chicago, and only a small fraction had managed to escape. If the Decepticons fought to the death, at least 1/3 of the population would perish. The number of heroes was small, and few had the ability to launch large-scale attacks. Moreover, such attacks would harm innocent people. Heroes like Cyclops and Jean Grey could potentially wipe out the Decepticons, but they would also cause massive civilian casualties. Out of humanity, Diana couldn't order a full-scale attack on the Decepticons in Chicago. Therefore, driving them out was the most strategic move. Most of the mass-produced Decepticons had low IQs and didn't foresee the consequences. By the time they realized it, it was too late. Special Forces had already deployed a large team outside the city, ready to chase and intercept the fleeing Decepticons. Once outside Chicago, heroes like Cyclops and Jean Grey no longer needed to hold back. Cyclops could take out nearly 100 Decepticons with a single laser burst. The power of the Phoenix, wielded by Jean Grey, vaporized nearly 100 Decepticons in an instant. The terror was palpable. More than half of the Decepticons who escaped from Chicago were wiped out in moments. Those who tried to return for cover found it impossible. Except for a few who could fly, most were killed. Some clever Decepticons pretended to be vehicles, lying in wait on the roads of Chicago. In Karazhan, Duke had been monitoring the situation in Chicago. Seeing the Decepticons' defeat, he smiled. "It seems that things here are almost finished." End of this chapter. Chapter 265, The Battle of New York. "Wow, the portal is open," Duke remarked, slowly putting down his coffee cup. "Yan, prepare for concentrating strike." "Okay," Yan responded. "Master, let me go." At that moment, the sealed door at the end of the corridor burst open, and Lian strode out. In a flash, she appeared in front of Duke. "Oh, your soul body has solidified successfully," Duke smiled slightly. "Yes, Master. At least I didn't disappoint you," Lian bowed. "All right, you go. Howard, assist her." Howard Stark followed reluctantly. "This is absolutely malicious." Lian's soul body had successfully condensed, meaning it was no longer transparent and looked exactly like a normal person. Except for a very few people, no one would notice anything unusual about Lian. Moreover, her soul body had reached a degree of condensation that made it difficult to break apart with ordinary magic attacks. She didn't need to eat, drink, breathe, sleep, or rest, but she could do these things to blend in. In other words, she could now go out and interact with the world. Howard, on the other hand, was still a transparent soul body. He couldn't go out without risking his soul dispersing. Lian was excited to manipulate the Mage Tower. The students at the X-Men Academy suddenly felt a sense of foreboding. One by one, they involuntarily looked towards Karazhan and noticed that the top point was open, gathering a devastating power. The teachers at X Academy, who were staying behind to look after the place, were also shocked and felt a little out of breath. "What is that?" Lingdi asked, her heart beating faster as she looked at the increasingly bright light atop Karazhan. It seems to be a weapon, Colossus said in a low voice. Everyone gave him a blank look. Even a fool could see it was a weapon. Little Rascal seemed to have thought of something. That is, Karazhan's strongest offensive weapon. During my time there, I heard them mention it, but I didn't ask for details. Duke had solved her problem, and she was back at X Academy. I wonder if Bobby is in danger? Phantom Cat glanced at her, curling her lips but saying nothing. Ah, the complications of a love triangle. Duke was communicating with Gu Yi. Haven't your disciples been sent out? With you here, I feel reassured, Gu Yi replied with a smile. That won't do. This is the obligation of all mankind, not just my responsibility. Duke shook his head. I have arranged for them to protect the safety of civilians. Oh, aren't you afraid your existence will be noticed by the common people? You've been hiding from the world for hundreds of years. Isn't this a failure? Gu Yi smiled. So what if they realize it? You have already been revealed, and one more of us won't make much difference. Besides, how can ordinary people understand what happened? That's true, Duke agreed. We can pull them directly into the mirror space and then move them to a safe area. The common people won't realize what happened, and the magicians will leave. You didn't come here just to chat with me, did you? Gu Yi asked. Of course not. I'm here to tell you that there may be visitors from another time and space coming to you, Duke said. Oh, Gu Yi frowned slightly. Of course, they may not come, Duke added. Gu Yi remained silent. All right, goodbye then, Duke said. Gu Yi frowned. How could he know the future? The future is blurry, and it's not easy to peek into the timeline. Ever since Duke built Karazhan, peeking into the future had become much harder and blurrier. Additionally, peeking into the future comes at a considerable cost, so she didn't do it often. For example, in Reunion 4, when Banner just jumped onto the Sanctuary of New York, Gu Yi was also momentarily confused. Initially, she didn't recognize him, but after a closer look, she was sure that this was. The future man arrived 5 years early. If she had been peeking into the timeline frequently, she should have seen that the time stone was taken and that Thanos was successfully killed, but she didn't know, not even that Doctor Strange had offered the gem to Thanos. So, it's not that she is free to spy on the future. Is it true that there are visitors from time and space? Gu Yi put down her teacup, slowly walked to the top of the building, and frowned at the flying cockroach monsters. She raised her hand and blasted one of them away. With another wave of her hand, another cockroach was obliterated. These creatures are truly disgusting. Tony took the lead, rushing towards the black chrysanthemum in the sky along the blue light. He opened a compartment on his shoulder, releasing small scatter-seeking bombs. The unfortunate Chitauri were killed as soon as they emerged. However, his strength alone was limited, and more Chitauri scattered, rushing to the streets and shooting mercilessly. Boom! Boom! The magicians had rushed to the streets to protect the civilians. Barton, piloting an F-22, arrived a step slower and was immediately shot down by Loki, crashing upon arrival. Thor was still battling his brother. Look around you. Will this chaos end with your rule? Thor demanded. It's too late, Loki retorted. It's really too late. You have provoked the most unprovoked existence. What do you think that person in Karazhan is doing? He has already been waiting for you to fall into his trap. Do you think you can escape? Loki froze for a moment. Impossible. My plan is foolproof. He can't possibly know. Oh, my idiot brother. You may have been monitored by him the moment you arrived on Earth. Although I don't understand the principle of that thing, he created something that can monitor everything on Earth in real time. Do you think you are sure to win? As everyone knows, you have already fallen into his trap, my good brother. Impossible. Nothing is impossible. People already know about your cooperation with the Decepticons. Do you think Duke went to Chicago? No, he is in New York. He never left for Chicago. He is waiting for you to fall into his trap. No. In desperation, Loki stabbed his brother violently, but Thor knocked him down with his hammer. The Mind Gem scepter fell downstairs, just as in the original plot. This is impossible. The fallen Loki landed on a Chitauri aircraft and tried to use magic to create a rift between dimensions to leave Earth. However, he was shocked to find that he could no longer tear the dimensional rift. He was bound here. Except there. Loki looked up at the huge black chrysanthemum in the sky. The whole of New York was trapped. Only there was allowed to pass. But Loki also knew that it was impossible for him to leave there alive. End of this chapter. Chapter 266. The Battle of New York. King Kong strikes out. In a quiet villa, an elderly man named Huasheng was stewing something in the kitchen. Suddenly, the silence was broken by the excited calls of his grandson. "Grandpa! Grandpa! Grandpa!" The little boy's voice echoed through the house. The old man, moving slowly due to his age, made his way towards the sound. "What is it, you little rascal?" he asked. His face kind despite the wrinkles and white hair that marked his years. There was something familiar about his features. "Grandpa, look at the TV. That man looks just like you. Is he your son? My uncle? Or maybe your illegitimate son?" The 10-year-old boy looked at his grandfather with wide, curious eyes. To him, his grandpa was a hero, not because of his status, but because he had married a beautiful woman, little Taylor, who was the boy's late grandmother. "Illegitimate son? Nonsense." The old man chuckled, though he was tempted to give his grandson a playful slap. He had loved little Taylor all his life and had no other children. But when he glanced at the TV, his expression changed to one of shock. Ignoring his grandson's puzzled look, the old man hurried to the sofa and picked up his cell phone to make a call. The boy watched in amazement as his grandfather moved with surprising speed. Weaver, what are you doing?" He asked urgently into the phone. "What am I doing? I'm reading a book. Why? Is something big happening?" came the reply. The grandson's ears perked up. Could Weaver be his grandpa's secret lover? Or maybe the powerful man on TV was his grandpa's illegitimate son? But then he remembered that Weaver was his grandpa's old colleague. "Turn on Fox Channel 5, quickly. That person has appeared," the old man instructed. "Who?" Weaver asked, confused. "Just do it. Rewind to 3 minutes and 15 seconds, the old man insisted. There was a pause, then Weaver's voice came back, excited. "Oh my, it's really you! Ha, I thought, but now I see it too." The old man laughed heartily, then coughed. "I told you I had discovered something about myself, but you didn't believe me. Now you see it too." "Grandpa, are you okay?" The grandson rushed to his side, patting his back. "I'm fine, just an old battlefield injury acting up." Yet the old man reassured him, ruffling the boy's hair. "I miss the days on Skull Island. Duke should still be the same, right? When can we go to New York to see him?" "Yes, I miss those days too. Let's find a time to visit. But remember, you're a supervillain, and I'm a superhero," Weaver joked. "You only have a photo, but I have a live video," the old man teased back. "Ah, fine. New York seems to be in chaos," Weaver said. "With him there, it won't be for long," the old man replied. "All right, talk later," Weaver said, and they hung up. The old man was Conrad, who had ventured to Skull Island in 1973 with the cameraman Weaver. After their thrilling experience, they had joined the Emperor Project under Shan's persuasion. Now in their 70s and 80s, both had retired. In 1995, Weaver had been shocked to see Carol Danvers, who looked exactly like her younger self. She had been on vacation and accidentally filmed Carol beating an old woman on a tram. It was a shocking sight. She remembered Duke showing her a photo, and it was unbelievable to think about it. She realized that the woman beating the old woman was Carol Danvers. Anyone who could be friends with Duke was no ordinary person. Duke hadn't aged, just like Carol Danvers. Fortunately, Weaver had aged 20 years by then, and her appearance had changed significantly. There was only one scroll on the tram, and Carol hadn't noticed her. Otherwise, she might have been caught in the fight. She had seen the scroll transform into another person, a sight that was both fascinating and terrifying. At a glance, she took a picture of Carol Danvers, but Conrad was very dismissive. Now, the old gray-haired Captain Conrad finally saw Loki in a chaotic New York, so he should be dumbfounded, right? "Ha, Weaver's still remembers what Duke said to them in the weapons and ammunition depot. To be precise, it was said to Conrad, 'You work hard. If you live another 40 years, you will meet the god of mischief, who is a dime the same as you.' Now, he really sees it. Unfortunately, Colonel Packard, I didn't get to see his good brother Nick Fury," Weaver sighed. Because he is old and dead, Weaver had investigated Carol Danvers when he knew about it. Although Shield is secretive, the Emperor Project organization is equally secretive. Although it was a bit difficult, Nick Fury was still found. When she saw this familiar face, she couldn't help but think of Colonel Packard back then. Oh, crap, cough, medicine, my medicine. Weaver hurriedly picked up the quick-acting heart medicine next to her and swallowed it. She had a heart attack and had to retire. A giant chimpanzee appeared on TV just now. She recognized it at a glance. This is King Kong from Skull Island. It's still alive. This has to be twice the height? By visual inspection, it was at least close to 100 meters. Suddenly, King Kong appeared in New York, which shocked her so much that her heart almost stopped. Fuck! The TV turned into static. Fox is really desperate to broadcast live. Weaver sighed and stood up, walked to the window, and took a deep breath. It may be that the person in charge of the live broadcast was killed, the equipment was destroyed, or there may be a problem with the signal connection. In short, it is impossible to connect in a short time. 3 minutes ago. It seems that it's a bit big. It's time to attack, King Kong. Duke contacted the gorilla far away on Skull Island, and it was up to him to agree to show his face. Soon, feedback was obtained. King Kong expressed his willingness to contribute. Therefore, Duke opened a super-large portal, a 100-meter portal, and projected King Kong onto Madison Square. This is why Weaver saw the giant gorilla. Immediately after, Duke stood up, stomped his feet, click, 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 click. The whole of New York was covered by the mirror space. That's why the Fox live broadcast went down as the entire Chitauri who had invaded New York disappeared, including the Arowana. The crowd on the streets of New York felt a little confused. Was it an illusion? A dream? Did everyone have the same dream? If it weren't for the destroyed high-rise buildings, the collapsed roads, destroyed cars, and the dead and injured people, they would have thought it was a dream. If it wasn't for the black chrysanthemum in the sky, this is not a dream. But where have they all gone? End of this chapter. Chapter 267, The Battle of New York is over. New York Sanctuary Guyi was laughing. It's a big deal. I'm sorry, this matter is nothing to the Supreme Mage, Duke replied. It seems that I can take people back. Don't wait, you can go out and fight mobs to gain experience. Ah, the firepower of the Chitauri was too strong, and the four-man team could not hold their ground. They quickly hid behind the cars on the street. Captain America, there are still some citizens trapped here. These people need help, said Captain America. Leave this to us, you go, Black Widow shouted. Can you contain them? Captain, we are not weak. Okay, Steve nodded. He stood up, ready to jump off the avenue, but before he could act, an illusion appeared before his eyes. All the humans in his sight disappeared. Only the reptile-like Chitauri were left, bobbing their heads in confusion. Where am I? Who am I? What's going on here? Why did the prey in front of me disappear immediately? The Chitauri seemed to wonder. Hawkeye took out his bow and arrows, firing 3 arrows in succession, each hitting its mark. Black Widow grabbed her guns. Boom! Like a relentless machine, her bullets never seemed to run out. After dealing with the Chitauri flanking them, the two noticed something was wrong. It was a lot quieter around them. Turning their heads, they saw no one. What happened, Captain? Hawkeye asked, dazed. Where did everyone go? Black Widow was also puzzled. I don't know. Captain America shook his head. It's supposed to be mirror space. Duke used it, Peggy Carter said. Yes, I remember he used it, Steve nodded. When he was in the Caspian training camp, Duke would often come out of nowhere to scare him, euphemistically calling it courage training. So it's Duke? Black Widow asked. Not necessarily. Mirror space is an ability that all magicians have. Peggy Carter shook her head, looking at the area where the crowd disappeared. Could it be that the entire New York is emptied? The range of this ability, apart from Duke, only the Supreme Mage can do it. As the ancestor of Esield, it was reasonable for her to know about the existence of Kamatage. Then, what is this mirror space? Hawkeye wondered. To put it simply, it is a parallel space. I don't know the specific principles, but once the space is released, you may bump into some people, Peggy Carter explained. Black Widow seemed to understand, a world that overlaps with the real world. Worthy of a high IQ, Peggy Carter acknowledged. More or less, she added. Their own team was stunned, and the Chitauri were even more so. They were besieging the humans on the street, and suddenly the humans disappeared. This left them confused. The mass-produced, low-intelligence, cockroach-like creatures couldn't understand what had happened. Scent ant, they chirped and shouted. What's going on? Where are the people? How would I know? Am I still asleep? Damn, what the hell happened? Loki, who was flying in the sky, didn't notice the disappearing humans on the ground at first. After all, there were too many Chitauri densely packed below, bombing everywhere. But soon the surroundings became quiet, and he realized that the humans had disappeared. This is the trap that Duke has arranged for you, Thor, the god of thunder, said as lightning flashed across the Chitauri aircraft, blasting his dissatisfied brother out. The situation seems a little bad, Black Widow whispered, looking at the Chitauri who turned their heads in the distance. It seems we have become the last food. Hawkeye laughed at himself, then clenched his bow and arrow tightly. The entire New York population had disappeared, and the Chitauri army lost its target. So, the only targets left were them. Thousands to one, even the battle-tested ones panicked. This was truly a dire situation. Looks like there's going to be a tough battle. Captain America gritted his teeth. The situation is far from ideal. Oh my God, look, what is that? Black Widow suddenly pointed at a shadow in the distance and shouted. Boom, boom. In the distance, a massive black figure rushed towards them, towering into the sky. Even from afar, it exerted an immense pressure on everyone. As it drew closer, the four of them were stunned. An orangutan nearly 100 meters tall? Was this also a Chitauri soldier? Roar! In the sky, a huge golden dragonfish was slowly swimming around. Upon seeing the enormous creature, it turned and charged. A Chitauri trooper transport that didn't evade in time was grabbed by the gorilla and torn in two. Hiss! The team was dumbfounded. Such power? Although the golden dragonfish wasn't as large as the gorilla, its solid plate armor made it a formidable opponent. Tony Stark couldn't blast it away with a single shot. It only exploded after he targeted its stomach. Yet this gorilla easily split it in half. It was King Kong from Skull Island. King Kong didn't stop there. He used the two arowana bodies like clubs. Within his attack range, no Chitauri aircraft could stay airborne. All were hammered to the ground. He stomped on a large group, killing them instantly, and slapped another group with a single swipe. The Chitauri fled in terror, their laser weapons unable to penetrate King Kong's fur, only singeing a bit of his hair. There was no fight, only retreat. It seems that this is our reinforcements, Hawkeye Barton remarked, clicking his tongue. Duke must have recruited this helper from somewhere. We need to evacuate too, Black Widow said. As King Kong approached, their safety was no longer guaranteed. King Kong was too massive. He might not notice them and accidentally trample them. At that moment, several golden dragonfish emerged from the sky, purposefully rushing towards King Kong. They're focusing their fire, then Hawkeye said in surprise. Can he withstand it? Black Widow asked, worried. King Kong didn't seem afraid. He suddenly raised his head and chest, beating his chest hard with his hands. Boom! And opened his mouth wide. The four of them slowly widened their eyes. What was that? In front of King Kong's mouth, a huge ball of light suddenly appeared. A blue-white sphere, at least 10 meters in diameter. Roar! Ape King Cannon! King Kong roared. As the roar subsided, the ball of light exploded and shot into the sky. Was it a laser cannon or a railgun? Whatever it was, in its max version, after the light passed, there were no more arowana in the sky. Captain America. Chapter 268, The Battle of New York is over. It would be great if there was a camera. Click, click, click. I've captured your Yanni emoticon package. Surprised. I think I heard it say, Ape King Cannon? After regaining her senses, Black Widow smacked her lips uncertainly. We've seen aliens invade. Armor arowana flying all over the sky. There are also chrysanthemums in the sky? What the chrysanthemum pulls is baba, and what it pulls is armored arowana, cockroach monsters all over the street. Adding a gigantic chimpanzee of nearly 100 meters, it seems that there is nothing to make a fuss about. You heard right. I heard it too, Hawkeye replied. So, it can talk? Are there talking monkeys? Peggy Carter blinked. Okay, let's not. Captain America clapped his hands and was about to speak when he saw a roar in the distance, and a big green monster strode over. The wild and crazy collision all the way. The Chitauri were unlucky. One by one they were hit and flew around, throwing their heads and spilling blood. Well, it is indeed a big monster, but it is still not as old as King Kong. Suddenly, Steve realized something was wrong. That guy seemed to be aiming at King Kong. Sure enough, this guy ran up to him, then jumped up suddenly and patted it with his big hands raised high. No, Hulk! Captain America was dumbfounded. This guy can really make trouble. If he doesn't come sooner or later, when King Kong comes, you come here. Are you making trouble? There is no difference between the enemy and the ally. That King Kong is clearly a friendly force. Don't keep thinking about fighting monsters. You are a monster yourself. Not to mention whether you win or not, you are a complete nonsense. However, the next scene turned him into a Yan Yi meme again. Snap! Hulk's big green hands clapped together with King Kong's huge black hands. Oh yeah! Then the two separated and each went to find their own targets. Captain America. It took a while. The brain recovered. They were just clapping hands? Black Widow said. It seems to be, Hawkeye replied. Yeah, huh? Peggy Carter added. Forget it. Let's go and exercise our muscles. Steve rubbed his face, feeling that he had too many facial expressions today, and he had to restore his previous majesty. Fortunately, the surroundings are very beautiful, and there is no embarrassment. Wow, I like this chimpanzee. In the sky, after throwing off the Chitauri's aircraft, Tony praised, Brothers, I think we can go find Loki's trouble. Agree. Outside, the whole of New York was a little dumbfounded. The people who stopped on the avenue looked up at the chrysanthemums in the sky, and then looked at the rags around them. All of them were a little dumbfounded. Who were those people just now? Aliens. But where did they all go? Why did they disappear in an instant? What happened? Am I dreaming? Do you need me to slap you? Let me slap you. Above the sky, inside the helicarrier, the country bumpkin was beeping in bewilderment. What? Why are there no more people? Director, a meeting of the Security Council. Maria Hill walked over. I'm annoyed, Chief. Tell them to go away. The country bumpkin turned his head and hummed. Just reply, get them out of here? Maria Hill asked. Yes, that's it. Is the chief really tough? You can try to contact Duke. Maria Hill made a suggestion, and then turned to tell the Security Council to get out. Duke? Yes, Duke, quickly called Duke. You did this, right? What about those Chitauri people? Don't tell me, just turn them into ashes. The chrysanthemums from that day are still there, the country bumpkin asked. They're still there, you just can't see them, Duke said. What do you mean? The country bumpkin was a little confused. Anyway, you shield get ready. About an hour later, the Battle of New York will be over. At that time, remember to recover the Chitauri corpses. Well, yes, I found a virus on them, tentatively referred to as the static virus may cause some damage to the recovery of society in the future. Well, it's time for me to go out for a walk too, Duke said, hanging up the phone. Hey, what do you mean? Hello? Damn it, Falk. The flying country bastard was so angry that he nearly exploded when he heard the busy tone from the phone. What's wrong? Maria Hill asked as she returned. What else? I can only suffer from him. Your expression is not right, Braised Dan observed. I was scolded, Maria Hill admitted. Braised Dan was stunned, his eyes widening in disbelief. You didn't really reply like that, did you? Of course, you are the director, Maria Hill replied. Braised Dan paused for a moment, then burst into laughter. Ha ha ha! They must be pissed off, right? I've wanted to do this for a long time. The subtext was clear. As the director, he had to be listened to. Maria Hill had previously bypassed him, reporting important news directly to the Security Council. Whatever had changed, it seemed to be for the better. Get ready. The Battle of New York will be over in an hour, and we need to clean up the battlefield. By the way, keep a close eye on the static virus, Braised Dan ordered. Static virus? On those Chitauri? Maria Hill frowned. It should be, Braised Dan sighed. If they really carry this virus, then I'm afraid it's unavoidable. Do we know what it looks like? Maria Hill asked. What does it look like, a virus? There were tens of thousands of Chitauri corpses and the remains of Arowana. Recycling them couldn't be done by S.H.I.E.L.D. alone. The military, New York City, and major corporations would all be involved. If this virus spread, the consequences would be unimaginable. Static electricity virus. Static electricity. It's almost like that, Braze Dan laughed. Maria Hill rolled her eyes. If it were just static electricity, it would be manageable. But this virus could cause 10, 100, or even 1,000 times more damage. Static electricity might sound harmless, but its potential for destruction was terrifying. Leon, let go, someone commanded. Okay, master. Leon excitedly opened the control valve. People from X Academy could clearly see the light on the top of Karajan becoming even more intense. Boom! Gathering energy, it exploded with one blow. With the power to destroy worlds, a huge red beam of light, several times larger than the Ape King cannon, blasted towards the black chrysanthemum in the sky. As for the people fighting in New York, they saw a huge portal gate under the chrysanthemum. The red beam of light hit the portal accurately and was then teleported into outer space. Boom! The dazzling brilliance lit up the sky. The Chitauri's hive was instantly destroyed. The Chitauri who remained in New York screamed and fell to the ground. The battle was over. End of this chapter. Chapter 269, The Battle of New York is over. Although I don't know what happened, outside the mirror space, New Yorkers are evacuating in an orderly manner with the help of the police. At the beginning, New York was bombarded by alien laser weapons. The outer walls of buildings collapsed, elevators and stairs inside were destroyed, roads caved in, vehicles exploded across main roads, and a large part of the bridge was even dented. It can be said that the entire road network of New York was paralyzed. The central area was the most severely affected, with the damage lessening as you moved outward. Before the destruction could spread completely, Duke trapped the aliens in the mirror space. In short, traffic was temporarily paralyzed. Many people were also trapped in buildings and couldn't get out. Those inside buildings were relatively safer, as long as the structures weren't dangerously compromised. However, those on the roads faced more trouble. Follow the command. Evacuate in an orderly manner. Hey, you there, don't grab a seat. What about you? The police officers were very grumpy. Although they didn't know exactly what had happened and the ugly aliens had suddenly disappeared, the officers were keenly aware that the matter wasn't over. The roads needed to be cleared quickly. For some reason, there was a pervasive illusion that the aliens might reappear. Suddenly, someone yelled, "Look, everyone, the chrysanthemums in the sky have disappeared." Everyone raised their heads subconsciously, and sure enough, the dark chrysanthemum-like portal that could pull in alien ships was gone. What did this mean? The previous aliens were gone, but the portal had remained. Now that the portal was gone, boom. A driver stuck his head out of the car window to look up at the sky when he hit something with a boom. Startled, he quickly retracted his head back into the car and kept apologizing. I'm sorry, aren't you? Eh? He thought he had hit someone or the vehicle in front of him, but he never expected to have hit an alien. Aliens appearing again? He was so scared that his heart nearly stopped. But fortunately, the alien didn't move. A few seconds later, he carefully opened the door and got out of the car, only to find that the alien was dead. This kind of thing didn't just happen to him. It happened on every avenue in New York. Some hit the Chitauri, some had them smashed onto their car roofs, some ran over them, and some even found aliens appearing inside their cars in strange ways, scaring many people into heart attacks. Duke's mirror space is different from Marvel's Mage system. His is slightly unique. To put it simply, the mirrored space here is exactly the same as New York, with all the roads, buildings, and bridges in the same locations. But if you destroy a bridge in the mirror space, the bridge outside won't collapse when the space is withdrawn. Similarly, buildings maintain the degree of destruction they had before the mirror space was opened. But the Chitauri inside are different. Because they were forcibly dragged into the mirror space, they are truly dead when they die, and their positions remain unchanged when they die. So, after the mirror space was evacuated, a large number of strange scenes appeared. Hitting people, smashing cars, running over them, and appearing in cars were all trivial matters. Some people even found 2 legs suddenly appearing on the wall in front of them. Upon closer inspection, they realized it was an alien stuck into the wall. Why does this happen? For example, if Chitauri A dies at position A in the mirror space, then after the mirror space withdraws, A will still appear at position A in the real space. But if it overlaps with a person, it won't directly pass through the person's stomach, but will push that person aside. Because the Chitauri were dragged into an uninhabited mirror space, their existence was, in a mirror world of New York, governed by the rules of Space Force. The citizens of New York are protected by these laws. Inside a building, the Avengers had assembled. "Okay, let him get up. We'll have more opportunities to show off in the future," Tony said. This time, Loki was not bombarded into his mansion again. "Whoa, classic American ass," Tony remarked, as a light curtain suddenly appeared in the room, displaying an image of Duke drinking coffee. The Black Widow rolled her eyes and then winked. "Is it pretty?" she asked, not hiding her amusement. "I'll give you 100 points. I'm not afraid of your pride," Duke replied, shifting the light curtain to look at Captain America. "Steve, your butt-lifting effect is comparable to Miss Natasha's." Steve looked up at the sky speechlessly. Who made this guy his instructor? He had often been teased in the training camp in his early years. Seeing that Steve didn't answer, Duke thought he was bored and shifted his position again. "Miss Carter, don't you feel inferior?" Duke asked. "Are you here to run your mouth?" Peggy Carter couldn't bear it. In theory, she was equal to Duke, although she owed him many favors. He had saved her from falling off a cliff to her death, saved Captain America, helped her regain her youth, and reunited her with the U.S. team. There were other small favors too numerous to list. It could be said that even if she had to give her life back, she wouldn't hesitate, but she still had her insecurities, especially about her figure. Her butt wasn't as high as Steve's, and her chest wasn't as big as others, which made her very self-conscious. "Aha!" Duke laughed, finally having made fun of someone. He then turned to look at Loki. "I have always had a question. Why did you invade Earth, and who gave you the confidence?" Forget about the original plot. The Ancient One may have seen the end of the invasion and knew it was destined to be stopped, so she didn't intervene. Of course, Loki might not know of the Ancient One's existence. But now, there were Duke, his wife Diana, and Dachau, a good man at home in the metropolis, who were on the same level as the Ancient One on Earth. They were on the same level as Odin. Even without knowing the existence of the Ancient One, his deeds had been passed down for half a century, not to mention Dachau. So, who gave Loki the courage? "You don't really think you can win with Megatron, do you?" Loki smiled contemptuously. "Who are you?" Everyone's complexion froze suddenly, especially Thor's, which changed drastically. Just when he was about to reprimand his younger brother, Duke had already made a move. "Oh, who am I?" "I'm the one who can kill you," Duke said, still sipping his coffee without even looking straight at Loki. He held the coffee cup in his left hand and raised an index finger with his right. There was a flash of cold light, and a chilling breath passed through the light curtain, making everyone's nose hairs stiff from the cold. 3 streams of cold shot out from the light curtain with a whoosh. "Wait!" Thor, concerned for his brother's safety, quickly opened his arms to block the front, but the cold current didn't hurt him at all. It directly passed through his body and hit Loki's chest heavily. Cough! A mouthful of blood spewed out, and the bright red blood instantly froze into ice. Loki curled up, his face gradually becoming very pale, his lips turning purple from the cold. Even the breath he exhaled turned into a single white mist of frost. Everyone was shocked. Duke's strength was already so formidable? Chapter 270, Wanda? The ice penetrated Thor's body, but he was fine. However, Loki, who was behind him, was almost frozen to death. Was this the legendary fighting cattle across mountains? Loki, how are you?" Thor asked with concern. "Cold." If he could fight, Loki would have stabbed the bastard again. "Can't you see that I'm cold? It's so obvious." Thor was very angry. He turned his head and glared at Duke. It's one thing to fight a war, but it's another when it's over. After all, this is his younger brother, Odin's child. Even if he is brought back, he will be imprisoned rather than executed directly. He didn't want his brother to die on Earth, especially not at the hands of this dangerous person. "What do you want to do?" Tony raised his hands, and the blue lights on his palms lit up. As long as Thor had the slightest thought of fighting, he would be bombarded. "You'd better stay calm," the Black Widow said, raising the spiritual scepter. Cap picked up his shield, and Hawkeye reversed the direction of his bow and arrow. Peggy Carter also stared at Thor unkindly. In an instant, Thor was betrayed by everyone. They were all very angry and seemed ready to kill Loki, but alas, it couldn't be done. Loki had a lot of background. If they really killed him, Odin, the king of the gods, would definitely not let it go. Even if Earth had Duke, Guyi, and Dahau, Odin was a legendary existence after all. In comparison, although Duke was powerful, they were more like 3 teachings and 9 streams. If you don't believe me, take a look. Which one is more shocking, the coming of Zeus or the coming of Duke? Although they couldn't kill Loki, they were happy to see him suffer. "This is Earth," Duke sneered. "We are unanimous." "Thor, you'd better not be impulsive," Steve reminded him. "You are not Duke's opponent. 10 of you are not enough to watch." Duke curled his lips. "Don't worry, it will only make him suffer, and your father will naturally untie him after you go back." "Nima, explain the P. I'm going to freeze to death now." Unfortunately, Loki was speechless, and even if he did speak, no one would pay any attention to him. "Who should I give the magic wand to?" Black Widow changed the subject. "S-Shield Commando," Cap yelled. Duke frowned. "Huh?" At that moment, the door opened, and Agent Sitwell came up with Rumlow and a group of commandos. Famous scene? Duke scanned around and found that there was no second Tony, no second Captain America, and no second Hulk, so he didn't worry. He would ask Guyi later. When they arrived at the door, they were stunned. What the hell did they see? A light curtain, and inside was the god of law, Duke. "Mr. Duke, hello." Sitwell hurriedly bowed and saluted politely. This was a powerful man. The rest of the commandos also stood still immediately. Duke snorted coldly and continued drinking his coffee. "Ahem, we're here to get the scepter," Sitwell said weakly. With this great power around, it seemed a bit difficult to get the scepter. In case the other party wanted to take possession, he didn't move. Fortunately, Duke waved his hand, looking disinterested. "Thank you." Sitwell bowed quickly. The Black Widow handed over the magic wand. "You have to be careful, unless you want to be brainwashed." "That's not a joke," Hawkeye added. "Don't worry, we will definitely be careful," Agent Sitwell said while carefully putting it into the safe. Giving the psychic scepter to Hydra didn't matter anyway, and without the scepter, wouldn't Wanda be gone? Although it may not be given after all, the plot had changed too much, and Marvel was not the only one. However, he had to try it out. If there was... That's it. Soon, Alexander Pierce appeared. "Sorry, you can't leave yet. That guy will be handed over to us for trial." "Loki can only be judged by Odin himself," Thor said angrily. "Wait, who are you?" "Head of S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury's boss," Tony introduced. "I don't care what Odin wants. I have to get that box. It has belonged to S.H.I.E.L.D. for the past 70 years, Alexander Pierce demanded. Duke reappeared, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Oh, really? Alexander Pierce, you want to steal my things? If I recall correctly, I lent it to you 70 years ago, right?" "If you're unsure, you can check the level 10 files." Alexander Pierce's mouth twitched. He knew he couldn't afford to mess with Duke. One wrong move and he could lose his head. He was well aware of the origin of the Rubik's Cube. It was first held by the Red Skull, then obtained by Duke while being pursued by Captain America. Later, Howard Stark, the founder of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Tony Stark's father, borrowed it. Since then, it had been kept in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s possession. Duke never asked for its return, nor did he set a time limit for borrowing it. As for where the Red Skull had it before, most of that is recorded in fairy tales. Therefore, in theory, this universal Rubik's Cube indeed belonged to Duke. It's not. You never asked for it back, and you've been absent. It's been kept by S.H.I.E.L.D. for 70 years, Pierce stammered. "Well, I'm here now," Duke replied, his tone icy. Pierce's mouth continued to twitch. "Of course, if you want it back, you can have it." He knew better than to offend someone with Duke's power, especially in New York. He also had a nagging feeling that Duke could see right through him. For now, it was best to keep Hydra's plans under wraps. Duke turned his gaze to Thor, making his intentions clear. Thor's face twitched as well. The Rubik's Cube belongs to Odin and Asgard. It was in Odin's treasury thousands of years ago, but was accidentally left behind. The universe Rubik's Cube wasn't made by Odin, nor by your ancestors. He got it from somewhere else. If he could do it, so can I. Now it belongs to me. Are you sure you want to argue with me? Duke's eyes narrowed, a cold glint in them. Thor's mouth twisted in anger. He felt like he had twitched more today than in his entire life, but he knew he wasn't a match for Duke. Without the cosmic Rubik's Cube, I can't push Loki back. Oh, that's a difficult problem, Duke said with a laugh. Besides, the Rubik's Cube is needed to repair the Rainbow Bridge. Thor gritted his teeth, deciding to compromise. I'll borrow it from you. I'm afraid if I lend it, I won't get it back. No, I guarantee it with my honor. Thor's honor was reliable, but I can lend it to you, but I need something in exchange. What? I heard you have a material called Uru. I need 10 tons of it to strengthen my equipment, Duke demanded boldly. What? Thor exclaimed, his frustration evident. End of this chapter. Chapter 271, Serial Meow Meow Fist. 10 tons. Thor's eyes widened in disbelief. Why don't you just rob me? This is robbery, Duke exclaimed. You might as well say this is faster than robbing, but I won't. Isn't it just 10 tons? Give it to him, Tony Stark said dismissively, looking at Thor as if he were being stingy. Of course, Tony knew that enhanced Uru, which he had never heard of before, must be something valuable and worth studying. Thor glared at Tony Stark, his expression saying, "You don't understand anything." 10 tons is impossible. The entire Asgard reserves don't even amount to 10 tons. I can offer you 3 tons. Uru is not native to Asgard. It is a remnant of the universe looted by the God King when he built the Asgard Immortal Palace. Its origin remains unknown. The entire Asgard's inventory is only 10 tons. Note that this is just Uru, note enhanced Uru. The synthesis of enhanced Uru is quite difficult, with a success rate of about 10 to 1, meaning 10 tons of Uru might barely produce 1 ton of enhanced Uru. The quality of the enhanced Uru is significantly better, potentially 100 times better than the original. The destroyer sent to New Mexico was made with Uru added at a ratio of 1/10, which is almost half a ton. Even at that ratio, the destroyer was incredibly powerful. If the destroyer armor were made entirely of enhanced Uru, it would be invincible, not something Thor could destroy with his divine power. 10 tons of Uru could potentially produce 1 ton of enhanced Uru, and Duke was asking for a third of Asgard's total reserves. Additionally, synthesizing enhanced Uru requires a dwarf king, and the process consumes a lot of resources. If unlucky, 10 tons of Uru might only yield 1 ton of enhanced Uru. No, no, no! Duke raised his index finger and waved it. This is not a negotiation. 10 tons, not 1 ton less. Agree, or you won't be able to go back. If you can't go back, it's useless, Tony Stark suggested, poking Thor with his elbow. Thor gritted his teeth angrily, but eventually nodded in agreement. Fine, but I can only give it to you in batches. It will take time to create enhanced Uru. No problem. I'll give you a month. If I don't see 10 tons in a month, I'll go to Asgard to get it myself. Thor almost choked on his own breath. Are you trying to kill me? No, you're trying to exhaust the Dwarf King to death. Even if he works non-stop, it will barely be completed in a month. By then, the Dwarf King will probably never want to see me again. All right, Thor agreed, practically growling the word out of his nostrils. Uru is indeed valuable, but there's too little of it. From the destroyer, it's clear that even a small amount can be incredibly powerful. However, once made into destroyer armor by Odin, the nature of Uru changes. Pure Uru is of no use to him now. Of course, I'll give you an additional piece of information that will surely interest you. What news? Thor frowned. Duke leaned in and whispered something incomprehensible to the others. The people around were bewildered, hearing only random symbols and gibberish. Thor's complexion changed drastically. He panted heavily, his eyes turning blood red. You! What did you say? Tell me, are you deceiving me? Is it a lie? Go back and ask your father. This may not happen, but it's a possibility among thousands. Now the universal Rubik's Cube is lent to you. With that, Duke smiled and left, leaving no time limit on the loan. Can I go now? Thor, still furious and upset, glared at Alexander Pierce, ready to strike if he dared to say no. Of course. Please. Alexander Pierce, frightened and twitching, quickly moved out of the way. He didn't know what Duke had said to Thor, but it was better not to find out. Thor, now in a state of rage, was not someone to provoke. Duke, having already lent the cosmic Rubik's Cube, dared not intervene. Thor snorted, strode out, and yanked his idiot brother so hard that Loki nearly fell. Loki, dazed, wondered what this bastard was going on out. Soon, after bidding farewell to everyone, Thor took Loki back to Asgard. Loki needed to face justice. Loki, Frigga stood beside the main hall, looking at her younger son worriedly. She didn't know what kind of punishment he would receive this time. Thor followed, and when he saw his mother, he remembered what Duke had told him, and his anger flared up again. "Hello, Queen Mother. Are you proud of me?" Loki taunted. "Please don't add fuel to the flames," Frigga pleaded. Up to now, Loki had not shown any remorse, and Frigga was even more worried. "How can you say that, you?" Frigga began, but Thor, unable to contain his fury any longer, struck out with his heavy hammer. His fist, as big as a clay pot, slammed hard into Loki's handsome yet evil face, knocking him to the ground. Thor, still furious, rushed forward with a series of hammer blows. "Enough!" Odin's voice boomed as he slammed the eternal spear. The surrounding guards, responsible for escorting Loki, quickly pulled the two apart. "You're crazy!" Loki wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said angrily, "I endured you all the way. Did you really think I was afraid of you? Let me fight." Thor sneered. "Let go of you so you can run away again?" He was still wary of his brother's magical escape abilities. A thief who runs away is not easy to catch. "Enough. I want to have a private talk with the prisoner," Odin commanded, slamming the Spear of Eternity again. Thor snorted and helped his mother leave. Loki also snorted coldly, wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth. "Ha ha ha! I really don't know which act you're putting on," Loki mocked. "Don't you realize the gravity of your sins? Wherever you go, there is war, destruction, and death," Odin retorted. "As a benevolent god, I went to Midgard to rule the people of Earth, just like you," Loki replied. "We are not gods. We also experience birth, old age, sickness, and death, just like humans," Odin corrected. "But we have a lifespan of 5,000 years, Loki countered. "Yes, we have a lifespan of 5,000 years. How did it feel to go to Earth this time?" "I heard you made a lot of preparations, but you were easily defeated," Odin snorted coldly. Loki fell silent. Later, Loki was imprisoned in the dungeon indefinitely. Whether he would escape in Thor 2 remained to be seen. After comforting his mother, Frigga, Thor searched around and finally found his father, only to see him sitting on the steps, struggling and holding his chest. This had happened once before in Thor 1 when he was deceived by Loki. "Father, how are you?" Thor hurried forward. "What a fuss!" Odin glared and shouted, "Help me up! I can still fight!" End of this chapter. Chapter 272, Spicy Shredded Chicken. "Father, are the Dark Elves still around?" Thor asked. Odin paused suddenly, his disbelief evident. "Who did you hear that from? No, how did you know? Is it true?" Thor pressed. After a moment of hesitation, Odin finally nodded. "Their leader, Spicy Chicken. Malaski." Thor frowned. The name was a mouthful. "It's Malekith." "Yes, him. And he's still alive?" Thor asked. Odin nodded. "I followed your grandfather to wipe out the Dark Elves' lair in one fell swoop, but their leader Malekith led a group to escape. We haven't found any trace of them since, but I know they will definitely come back. And Loki was also picked up at that time." He sighed deeply. "Hey, by the way, how do you know this?" "Duke told me." "Duke?" Odin's eyebrows raised. "He said that the cosmic Rubik's Cube does not belong to us. He lent it to us, and the rent was 10 tons of enhanced Uru." Thor was still a little annoyed. Odin chuckled. 10 tons! He is really a lion. Give it to him." Thor was stunned. Just like that? 10 tons. When did Dad become so agreeable? "He should have said something else, right?" Odin inquired. "How do you know?" Thor froze for a moment, then gritted his teeth. "He told me about the Dark Elves and said they would invade Asgard in the near future, and that my mother Loki would die." Indeed, Loki had pointed the cursed warrior to destroy Asgard's defensive shield, leading to the massive invasion of the Dark Elves. If it weren't for him, the cursed warrior might have gotten lost in Asgard for a while, and then been killed by Odin and Thor. The root cause was that Jane Foster had become an ether particle host. If Jane hadn't been so curious, she wouldn't have been possessed by ether particles, and she wouldn't have come to Asgard, causing it to be breached. However, it would be too far-fetched to blame Jane Foster. So, blame Loki. Odin was stunned, a trace of sadness on his face, but strangely, he wasn't shocked. "Is it a prophecy? That's why you guessed it was the one who beat up Loki? Yes, Thor didn't deny it. It didn't happen. Odin shook his head. Regarding the prophecy, he either believed it or didn't. He believed that the future could be controlled by himself. Asgard also had prophecy professionals who could sometimes predict the future very accurately, but it was very difficult to predict the future at their level, often draining the lives of these professionals. There is a price to pay for trying to predict the future. Although Duke's strength was comparable to his, he couldn't even predict Frigga's fate, so he didn't believe it. As for not being shocked when he heard of his wife's death, it was because he himself was about to die. No matter how powerful he was, no matter how much he deceived himself that he was a god, there would be a time when he would die, and he was already prepared. So there wasn't much shock about the death. But he wouldn't lie to me for nothing, right? Why would he say that for the sake of tricking Loki? What's the point? Thor never dared to take it lightly. Why? Because Frigga was quite beautiful when she was young, and she was a very charming woman. Thor thought, I treat you as a senior, but you actually want to be my father. Let's not discuss this matter. You go solve the chaos in the 9 realms first. Because of Loki, the 9 realms have started to have continuous disputes again. Odin waved his hand, feeling a little tired. It is necessary to block Loki's line of sight and prevent him from seeing things outside the cell. Understood. Thor nodded. I'm going to transport Uru to the Dwarf King first. Duke asked to harvest it within a month. After that, I will go to the 9 realms. With that, Thor strode out. Thor's reputation was still good. After his son left, Odin finally showed a trace of worry. Frigga, it turned out he didn't want his son to worry. The father's concern was evident. Back must be straight. New York. Alexander Pierce was very upset. The cosmic rub, Ache's cube, was gone, and there was no reason to keep it. Soon, Agent Sitwell, his loyal subordinate, approached him. Boss, the scepter has been handed over to Dr. Lister. They will notify us when they have the research results, Sitwell reported. Ah, Pierce responded absent-mindedly. Boss, are you still thinking about the cosmic Rubik's Cube? It's in the past now. Let's focus on the present, Sitwell suggested. What do you mean? Alexander Pierce asked, puzzled. Those Chitauri corpses, weapons, armor, transport ships, etc. Maybe they can be used, Sitwell explained. Picking up sesame seeds and throwing away watermelons, Pierce grumbled, still unhappy. That's better than not being able to pick up sesame seeds at all, right? Sitwell countered. Pierce hesitated for a moment before giving an order. Inform Rumlow and the others to begin the Chitauri recovery immediately. Sitwell nodded and walked out, a bit puzzled. Rumlow had been exposed, yet they were still using him. It wasn't the Hydra identity that was exposed, but rather the direct connection to the boss. Hey, no. Wait a minute. Let Rumlow know that the recovery work should be passive. Don't work too hard. Pierce suddenly changed his instructions. Ah, boss, what do you mean? Sitwell asked, confused. If you're told to go, hurry up. Stop asking so many questions, Pierce snapped. Yes, boss, Sitwell replied hurriedly and left. If he could understand everything, he would be the boss. Of course, they couldn't be too proactive. If they were, how could they give other interested parties a chance to sneak around? After some people are robbed, it will inevitably bring chaos and trouble to society. Some of those who can be developed will probably become enemies of S.H.I.E.L.D. At that time, distracting their attention will also help their secret actions. At this time, Duke was drinking tea with the Ancient One in the Sanctum Sanctorum. Naturally, he didn't need to worry about the recovery work and subsequent troublesome matters. There are no visitors from time and space. Duke's worry was finally put to rest. In fact, he didn't find any. It was just a reassurance here. Of course, he didn't think Thanos would invade the Marvel world here. Isn't that courting death? Superman alone could defeat Thanos, but it's a pity that Superman had been quite lazy recently. The last time Duke saw him, he noticed that Superman had gained a little weight. Sigh. You. The Ancient One began to speak, but Duke's phone rang. I'm sorry, I need to take this call, Duke said, answering his phone. Hey, my dear, is the Chicago Pigeon finished? Well, if some escape, let them escape. You have to put some pressure on Optimus Prime and the others. As for those robots, leave it to Optimus Prime and the others to recycle. A pile of junk has no research value. Well, That's settled, Duke concluded. On Cybertron's side, apart from the Allspark and the Matrix, there were no valuable items left. End of this chapter. Chapter 273. CBS, ABC, NBC, Fox, and CW are all broadcasting and reporting on this invasion. This catastrophic event has been confirmed as an alien attack. The Avengers, a group of extraordinary individuals, not only reassure the public but also inspire them. The streets of New York City have become a battleground, and even Chicago is not spared. In my many years of news reporting, I have never witnessed such a situation. Our combat team has limited information. We know about Karajan, members of the X-Men Academy, the recently formed Justice League, Captain America, billionaire Iron Man Tony Stark, and Thor, the god of thunder from the realm of the gods. Mr. Wayne has disguised himself well, and his identity remains undiscovered. The Flash also wears a mask, keeping his identity unknown. Sea King Arthur is known to some extent, but he was born in a remote place, so there isn't much information about him. Cyborg was originally the easiest to trace, but he has erased any information about himself from the internet long ago, leaving nothing to check. Karajan's group is the most well-known, having made a public appearance in a recent live broadcast. The X-Men are also familiar to the public, having cooperated with the government for 20 years and frequently appearing on TV and in newspapers. The X-Men Academy has even become a tourist attraction, with people visiting daily to see mutants in person. Few people know about the Hulk, as his existence is a closely guarded military secret. Black Widow and Hawkeye have never been recorded on the internet. "Oh God, from the realm of the gods," one person exclaimed. "It's great to know that there is such a group of people watching over us. I love you, Thor. However, not everyone feels safe. It's hard to say," another person commented. "I don't feel safe with them, and the government seems to be hiding something." "Superheroes in New York? Stop it," someone else argued. "These so-called heroes are responsible for the damage the city has suffered. This is what they caused. Where did they go?" Despite the mixed feelings, some are grateful. "Captain America saved me," one person said. "Wherever he is, wherever they are, I just want to say thank you." It has been a week since the Battle of New York and the Battle of Chicago. The recovery work is proceeding in an orderly manner. Both recycling and rebuilding efforts are urgent. Thanks to Duke, the damage to New York was relatively light. In general, only the corpses and armor of the Chitauri need to be recovered, although many buildings and traffic avenues were destroyed. It will take quite a long time to clean up the avenues and repair the buildings. The Chitauri have already begun recycling, with S.H.I.E.L.D., the military, and major companies all participating. S.H.I.E.L.D. alone could not recover tens of thousands of corpses. Alexander Pierce's influence is also evident, as the recycling task was divided to prevent future chaos. A single Chitauri arowana is enough to last a year. In Chicago, the damage was more severe. Without Duke to open the mirror space, the Decepticons caused significant destruction with their artillery bombardments. Shockwave's pet driller even caused a building to collapse. The recovery of the Decepticons was handed over to Optimus Prime and the troops led by Colonel William. Optimus Prime's broken arm also needed parts for repair. While there is no immediate concern for Chicago, the reconstruction work will take a long time. New York can be mostly repaired in about a month due to the relatively minor damage, but Chicago will take at least 6 months to recover. The primary focus in Chicago is to recover the Cybertron robots, but New York is already encountering trouble. In recovering the Chitauri, static virus, there were only a few cases in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. However, within a week, there have been dozens of static electricity explosions, causing S.H.I.E.L.D. significant headaches. The recycling workers who had close contact with the Chitauri managed to escape the initial invasion but unfortunately died in the aftermath. Reviewing the latest statistical data, Alexander Pierce smiled smugly. "I'm really smart." "Of course, boss, you are the smartest," Sitwell flattered him appropriately. "Stop flattering me. Take advantage of this opportunity and implement the plan quickly," Alexander Pierce commanded, waving his hand dismissively. "Understood," Sitwell replied. Meanwhile, Nick Fury was also feeling the pressure. Although Duke had warned him about something called the static virus, he hadn't anticipated its ferocity. Nearly 100 cases had broken out in just 1 week, and Fury felt like his head was going to explode. Fortunately, the static virus was not contagious. Otherwise, New York would have become a disaster zone. "Sir, what should we do next?" Maria Hill asked. "Ensure that all personnel take proper precautions when recycling the Chitauri materials and strictly prohibit unauthorized removal," Fury instructed. "I'm not referring to that. Some of the infected have scattered and traveled quite far. What should we do if similar incidents happen again?" Maria Hill expressed her concern. Although there were places like Karazhan and the X-Men Academy, the Justice League seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Despite the abundance of superheroes, there was no unified command. If they had coordinated from the beginning, they wouldn't be caught off guard now. Additionally, the X-Men Academy was gradually falling behind. The recent battle in Chicago highlighted this issue. The two principals, Raven and Hank, could only rescue civilians on the outskirts of Chicago and couldn't participate in the main battle. It wasn't that they didn't dare. They simply couldn't keep up in terms of strength and were afraid of endangering their teammates. This time, only Jean, Cyclops, Iceman, Pyro, and Storm were able to fight. While they could hold out for another 20 years, the X-Academy was clearly showing signs of decline. In the end, they couldn't always rely on Karazhan. Duke's temperament was unpredictable. He might suddenly decide to ignore a crisis. This kind of situation wasn't unheard of, and it was often referred to as adolescent rebellion. Therefore, Maria Hill felt it was crucial to have their own team. "They will come back," Fury said, turning around. "Are you sure they'll come back?" Hill asked. "I'm sure," Fury replied confidently. "How can you be so certain?" she pressed. "Because we need them to come back." "Hill, let's focus on resolving the Chitauri issue first," Fury said, waving his hand to signal the end of the discussion. Although the internet was abuzz with debates, both positive and negative, it didn't matter to the superheroes in reality. They had already gone to the dark sea in the center of the earth for a vacation, and for now, everything outside was irrelevant to them. The battles were over, and the rest could be dealt with by others. End of this chapter. Chapter 274. Chin has a daughter, the dark sea in the center of the earth. "I didn't notice it last time I came here. It's quite beautiful," Arthur remarked, taking in the surroundings. "Where did you find the time to appreciate the scenery last time?" Mira rolled her eyes. "By the way, how is Mother?" Arthur shrugged. "What do you think? You can see that I'm still able to run around." "Still being the Queen of Atlantis?" Mira shook her head in exasperation. Initially, due to Atlantis's law code, she had compromised and appointed Atlana as the temporary Queen of Atlantis. A year later, Arthur succeeded her. But now, it seemed Arthur was not king material at all. It had been a year, and he was still wandering outside. Hearing that Arthur was thinking about his back garden, Duke immediately rushed over. "What do you want? This is the retirement villa I prepared. You are not allowed to come in, or I will break your trident." Mara rolled her eyes again. Arthur, feeling distressed, quickly clarified that he had no such intentions. "Just kidding. I gave Duke a bend last time, and if I bend again, I may not be able to straighten it back." Quickly changing the subject, Arthur looked up at the sky. "Are those crystal clusters? Aren't they too big?" Everyone looked up and saw the huge and dense clusters of crystals. The strong white light, with a slight purple halo, illuminated the entire Dark Sea Island in the center of the Earth. It was because of these crystal clusters that the center of the Earth was so bright. "Yes, those are very special crystals," Duke said, not elaborating further. The brightness of the entire Dark Sea in the center of the Earth was mostly due to the effect of the crystal clusters, like a chandelier turned on at night. But there was a more special reason, which he did not need to disclose. This time, a large number of people had come to the Dark Sea in the center of the Earth. Those who participated in the Battle of the Two Cities were among them, and some had brought relatives and friends. Just like Mr. Wayne, who had brought 2 women and 1 man. Duke recognized the slightly older girl among them, Catwoman. Duke took a deep breath. The Catwoman here was the version of Anne Hathaway from Batman: The Dark Knight Rises, not the version of Halle Berry from Catwoman. It was a close call. He almost got 2 Storms or 2 Catwoman. In fact, Duke should have realized it earlier. How could Mr. Wayne not know the existence of Storm? If Catwoman looked exactly like Storm, how could he be so calm? The two had not met once. Even if they had, Duke saw them together twice recently when they gathered to go to Chicago. If they looked exactly the same, how could Mr. Wayne not be shocked? Sure enough, they did not have the same face shape. Unexpectedly, Wayne, you are growing stronger and stronger? Duke walked over, glanced at Catwoman playfully, and then patted the old man's shoulder with a smile, very hard. Wayne's body stiffened when he was patted, and he would have fallen to the ground if not for his composure. His face turned red. You should praise Selina for being young. Then he slipped away from Duke without a trace and introduced his companions. This is Selina Kyle, my wife. This is my daughter, Helena, and this is Damien, my youngest son. Catwoman's real name was Selina Kyle, and it was true love. Duke noticed that Damien's mother was not present. He was still in the League of Assassins. However, Duke vaguely remembered that Mr. Wayne did not marry Catwoman but had a daughter. Could he have remembered wrongly? Hello? Duke shook hands with Catwoman with a smile, then glanced at Helena. Her heroic appearance had the demeanor of a fusion of Batman and Catwoman. Hello, Catwoman extended her hand generously. As for Damien, he was still a 10-year-old kid with a runny nose. He looked very defiant, but was held tightly by his father. This kid was still a handful. Duke was on edge, trying to avoid making a bad impression. If it weren't for this little devil's persistence, he wouldn't have brought him here. Fortunately, Duke only glanced at him before turning his attention back to Helena. This surprised him. Could it be that Duke was interested in his daughter? Helena, are you interested in joining my team? Duke asked. Joining his team? Wayne finally sighed in relief. He assumed Duke was referring to the House of Wishes. As Batman, he knew that the team was still in its early stages, led by Mara. Mara was Duke's woman. If Duke liked his daughter, he wouldn't be foolish enough to send her there, right? That would be a disaster. And Duke wasn't stupid. This would separate Diana from Mara. Maybe he was overthinking it. The team currently had Mara as the captain and Domino as the only other member. Peggy Carter was initially considered, but after the Battle of New York, she likely returned to S.H.I.E.L.D. to join the Avengers. There was also a reserve member known as Big Boss, who was reportedly still being punished. Invite me? Why? Helena was surprised. Her strength was not exceptional. She had always been proud of the training she received from her parents and felt capable, even if she wasn't among the top fighters. But after the Battle of New York and the Battle of Chicago, she realized she wasn't as strong as she thought. Why didn't you invite me? The bratty Damien asked arrogantly. This kid. Mr. Wayne decided he would definitely discipline him once they got home. We'll talk about it when you grow up, Duke replied, uninterested in brats. Miss Helena, don't rush to refuse. You have plenty of time to think about it. Duke had considered that the House of Wishes needed a subordinate team exclusively for Karajan. This wasn't just to keep Mara from getting bored. He couldn't always handle minor incidents himself. The big boss would be the think tank. Mara, the captain and core leader, Domino, the assistant, and Helena, with her Catwoman and Batman skills, would provide technical support. The basic framework was set. They just needed to add a few more members for output and assistance. Okay, Helena said, still a bit confused. Duke nodded and walked towards Raven and Hank. When are you two getting married? I'm still waiting for the wedding wine. Hank and Raven looked embarrassed. Forget it. Do whatever you want, Duke said, shaking his head. It was a complicated love triangle that hadn't been resolved yet. Jean, I've known you since you were very young, and you also. Cyclops glanced at her. By the way, when are you getting married? Duke asked. We've been married for a long time, Cyclops replied. What? Duke was dumbfounded. When did that happen? While you were asleep, Jean said. That was before 2007. No one told me, Duke said, still in shock. Not only are we married, but we also have a daughter, Cyclops added. Duke was left speechless. End of this chapter. Chapter 275, Rachel Summers. What? Not only married, but also a daughter? Duke was surprised. Jean Grey and Cyclops were even more speechless. The group around them reacted with various expressions. Was it really appropriate for Duke to recognize grandsons, granddaughters, and grandchildren everywhere? Only Tony was exceptionally happy. Wow, ha ha ha, Finally someone can feel my pain, he thought. But then he realized, wait a minute, doesn't that mean I'm a generation younger than them? Looking at the group present, it seemed he was relatively old, but his seniority was so low. This realization suddenly made him unhappy. Seeing the various expressions around him, Duke smiled without hesitation. Why, you called me uncle back then. Jean Grey blushed immediately. Duke had appeared when Professor X brought her to the X-Men Academy. At that time, she seemed to have called him uncle or something. Cyclops became depressed, realizing he was now a generation shorter. He always thought he was of the same generation and era as Duke. After all, Duke's appearance was too deceptive. He looked like a 20-year-old. It wasn't until now that he remembered Duke was already over 110 years old. It was really cheap to call him uncle. He could easily be a grandparent or a great-grandfather. How old is she? Duke asked. She was born in 6, Jean Grey replied. That's 6 years old. Hey, I'll make up a gift for her later. By the way, it won't be Rachel Summers, right? Duke said suddenly. The two were shocked. How do you know? Hey, as a Sorcerer Supreme, do you think it's difficult? Duke curled his lips. I also saw her causing trouble in X Academy again. Really, amazing girl. Although Cyclops couldn't see his eyes, his expression was quite embarrassing. Jean Grey stomped her feet angrily. We're not mischievous again. Let's go back and see how to deal with her. Ahem, Rachel is still young, so don't be so strict, Cyclops said, embarrassed. He was a doting father. Duke blinked. It seems this is a strict mother and a loving father. Rachel Summers, who didn't exist in the main X-Men timeline, was the daughter of another timeline. Duke knew the name and had seen it in Marvel Future Fight. At that time, the version was updated, and it cost 3,000 diamonds, right? He forgot. The damage wasn't the most severe, but it was still significant. The main reason was that her appearance was quite special, with a pattern on her face somewhat like the female version of Uzumaki Naruto. Not bad. She should have inherited your abilities. Cultivate her well, and you X-Men can be regarded as having successors, Duke said, looking at Jean Grey with a smile. Cyclops was tangled. As a father, he didn't pass on his excellent genes to his daughter, but she inherited her mother's. Didn't this mean his genes weren't as good as Jean's? Telepathy and telekinesis were completely another version of Jean. And according to Jean, their daughter also shared part of the Phoenix Force, but it was still dormant. But he was also fortunate. If she had inherited his abilities, wouldn't she also be a blind man? It didn't matter for boys, but for girls, this was both his pain and joy. Pyro's expression froze. What did Duke mean by successor? Wasn't he considered someone? On the contrary, Iceman seemed to have noticed something and sighed slightly. The X-Men still seemed brilliant, but they were indeed a little weak. The frontline combatants were only Jean Grey, Cyclops, Storm, Colossus, Psylocke, Quicksilver, Iceman, Pyro, Shadowcat, and Nightcrawler, and most of them were in their 50s. Even he was 30 years old. Most of the latest young generation had very weak abilities and couldn't be relied upon to stand alone. If this continued, X Academy would be reduced to a second-rate power when they were too old to fight. Professor X was nowhere to be found, and even if he was already old, in his 70s or 80s. Magneto, who was also in his 70s or 80s, still played a significant role. On a small, isolated island, far removed from the world, a group of people gathered for some farmhouse fun. However, lurking in the shadows were villainous mutants, always ready to cause trouble. When they could no longer be suppressed, the mutants would once again become the center of attention. All right, let's not dwell on those unpleasant thoughts, Duke said, clapping his hands to get everyone's attention. Put down your burdens. We're here to relax. Everyone cheered. Oh, Doctor. Erskine leaned forward excitedly. Boss, are we going to broadcast live again? Live broadcast? Duke hesitated for a moment before shaking his head. We've already done a live broadcast once. If we do it again, won't they abandon the book? What? Won't they abandon our YouTube channel? Dr. Erskine looked a bit disappointed. So no live broadcast? No live broadcast, but we can film it and upload it directly, Duke replied. Excellent, Dr. Erskine said, his excitement returning. Why are you so happy? Duke asked, puzzled. Dr. Erskine hesitated for a moment before hurrying off to prepare the equipment, leaving Duke confused. In truth, Although the old doctor had a tendency to cough up blood, he also had a fighting spirit. He might be too lazy to participate in person, but he loved watching others hunt. The technological weapons he had developed could easily take down a Tyrannosaurus Rex. No matter how powerful the dinosaur was, it was no match for a bullet. Dr. Erskine wasn't a combatant after all. Duke clapped his hands again. All right, let's all take a good rest. After the break, grab whatever you want for lunch. I'm only in charge of the barbecue. He then pointed to the rows of grave mounds in the distance at Schwelian Cave. I've also prepared a resting place for you. Don't worry, it's very soundproof inside. The men smiled, and the ladies shrugged their shoulders, giving Duke a playful look before pinching their own men, quite hard. The men stood up, trying not to cry. It would be embarrassing to be pinched to tears by their wives, especially since they were all superheroes from Megatron's side. They couldn't afford to do anything embarrassing. Duke left first with Diana and Mara to clean up the venue. As for any romantic notions, well, those were out of the question. Unless someone wanted to risk being cut off by Diana or twisted into a pretzel by Mara's water jet. Captain, a voice called out. Huh. Hello, Steve replied, just as he was about to take Peggy sightseeing. Although he had been here before, he never tired of the place. He turned around to see Bruce Wayne. What's up? Steve asked. End of this chapter. Chapter 276, because even if I say it, I won't agree. Ask me, in what direction is the Scutellaria? Old Man Wayne inquired, his voice tinged with an obsession that had become all too familiar. Catwoman, standing behind him, rolled her eyes. Helena mirrored the gesture, clearly exasperated. Oh, that direction about 5 kilometers away, Steve pointed, indicating a location. It seemed this was the winner of the live broadcast at the time. He must have tasted it and wanted to try it again. The Bantooth rhinoceros soup was indeed mellow and delicious. Thank you, Mr. Wayne nodded, then turned to his wife and children. You stay here. I'll be back soon. Let me help you. Can you manage it alone? Catwoman asked, concerned. It's not about the competition weight, just finding a small one. You stay and take care of them, especially Damien. Don't let him run around, Old Man Wayne instructed. Well, be careful, she replied. Oh, I see, Steve smiled, saying nothing more. Finding a small one? That might be challenging, and he could attract a herd of rhinos, especially after killing one of their young. Oh, by the way, wait a minute, you are. Captain America began, recognizing Mr. Wayne, but not making the connection to Batman. Like Spider-Man and the Flash, Batman wore a mask and altered his voice. Steve knew of Batman, but had never worked with him. Mr. Wayne smiled, took a dart from his body, and threw it at Captain America, confident he could handle it. Swish. Of course, Steve caught it, examining the silver bat dart in his hand. Realization dawned on him. You are Batman. It's me, Mr. Wayne confirmed with a smile. Your way of introducing yourself is really unique, Steve remarked. Mr. Wayne shrugged. You're the captain. It's easy for you, isn't it? Sterling silver? Steve asked, still puzzled but pocketing the dart. Yes, a gift for you, Mr. Wayne replied. Isn't sterling silver very soft? Steve questioned, though he kept the dart. Batman's gadgets were valuable, and this one could fetch at least $300, not to mention its priceless association with Batman. A special element has been added. It maintains 999 purity while being sharp and harder than an alloy, Mr. Wayne explained. He then waved. I'll go now. Remember, keep this confidential. He trusted Captain America to keep his secret. As he walked away, a small drone flew towards him, its camera spinning. He recognized it as the shooting machine from the last live broadcast, now equipped with weapons. Seeing the drone, Catwoman felt relieved and led her son and daughter to the rest area. Her daughter was her own, and though her son wasn't, she treated him without bias. They headed towards Dr. Erskine, where a screen displayed Bruce's jungle adventure. The drone moved dynamically, capturing every angle. Catwoman hadn't seen Dr. Erskine operate it, so she assumed it was self-aware. She chuckled at the thought. How could that be possible? She was right, though. Since the last live broadcast, Dr. Erskine had improved the operation mode. With only 5 people last time, he managed alone. Now, with more participants, he had anticipated this and installed an elf in each drone. So it wasn't truly driverless. The little elf piloted the drone, following and filming automatically. In dangerous situations, it decided whether to attack based on the subject's ability to handle it. Of course, Dr. Erskine could also send attack signals. Seeing how persistent Mr. Wayne was, Duke couldn't help but smile bitterly. He had heard about Mr. Wayne's obsession with the slab-toothed rhinoceros. Forget it. Let him go. The other Bruce also came here for the first time. Having been to Skull Island, he naturally didn't find it so strange, including the peculiar lighting of the dark sea in the center of the earth. He had long realized that the brightness here wasn't solely due to the crystal clusters. Just like Skull Island, which is surrounded by ring thunderclouds all year round, it should be dark there, according to normal scientific IC theory. The ring-shaped clouds block the sunlight, making it impossible to see anything. But when he entered, it was bright and clear. Very strange. Bruce didn't go hunting, he just ate whatever others caught and enjoyed the food and drink. Besides, if he wanted to hunt, he would have to call out the Hulk, and his small body couldn't handle that. Oh, how could it be possible to call out the Hulk? Barry Allen didn't go to get food either. He planned to mooch off Batman. As for himself, he went out for sightseeing. Anyway, he was fast, not afraid of being caught, and there was no danger at all. With a flash of lightning, he disappeared. Arthur didn't go hunting either. He went to see where his mother had been for 10 years. The last time he was here, time was urgent, so he didn't get a chance to look around. Although the doves now occupied the magpie's nest and the water curtain cave had changed a lot, it didn't stop him from feeling sad. This was the first time the X-Men had come, and they were already excited to go sightseeing. They could fly anyway, and those who couldn't fly could be carried by others. John, if you dare to set my back garden on fire, let's see how I deal with you. Duke's threatening voice came from a distance. Pyro, who was turning into a thunderbolt and flying randomly in the sky, trembled in fright and almost fell headfirst. Iceman Bobby sighed, turned his head, and flew towards Pyro. He decided to keep a close eye on him. If things got out of hand, he could put out the fire in time, right? Duke was busy packing up his new home when Black Widow jumped out at some point. Hey, I have something to discuss with you. Hey, I haven't said anything yet, Natasha protested. Needless to say, because if you say it, I won't agree, Duke replied with a bright smile. Why? Natasha asked. Because this is my back garden, and you are not someone like me, so how could you live here? Duke explained. Do you know mind-reading magic? Black Widow was stunned. How did he know what she wanted to say? Duke curled his lips. Do I need to read minds? From the big shining eyes when you came in, I guessed what you wanted to say. It's nothing more than wanting to build a house here after you retire. Isn't that right? The Black Widow nodded, feeling depressed. This place was very beautiful, with a prehistoric style. It was a pity to lose the opportunity. End of this chapter. Chapter 277. I am a scholar. Why? Are you thinking about retiring so early? Duke looked at the widow curiously. The widow, also known as Natasha, was a woman with a troubled past. She had hoped to escape her previous life and join a powerful and righteous organization to atone for her early sins. Unfortunately, it turned out to be a dream. She had merely jumped from one hell to another. In the past, she thought she was doing those hot things, but looking back, it was no different from being in the Red Room. She was quite content now, but unfortunately she would be sad in a few years. I will retire one day. I can't keep fighting forever, Natasha said, letting her hair down. Or I'll be your woman, so I can share a piece of land with you. Cough. Sensing Diana's murderous eyes not far away, Duke gave Natasha a speechless look. How about dividing your cemetery if you don't know how to wink? Too blind to see. Can you say that? Make an appointment to sneak out. Diana is not like him. She can monitor the whole of New York, and she won't know if he eats something secretly, but he also knew that Natasha was teasing him. How could such a smart woman say this in front of Diana? Okay, I get it. How about I be your maid? You see, this place is very big, and it needs to be cleaned up, right? Natasha offered as a compromise. I understand you, Hammer. I am a scholar. Duke rolled his eyes. What does it have to do with students? Natasha didn't quite understand this reference. If you want to live here for a long time, then you will feel very tired. Let's talk about this later. Okay. Perhaps because Diana was nearby, the topic was not exhausted, leaving room for change. Natasha nodded and left to meet Hawkeye, ready to go hunting. But she was giggling in her heart. It seemed that Duke had a tracheitis. Then Mara was still perfect. She didn't think Duke was an unsuitable man. It seemed that Diana had him wrapped around her finger. Joke. If Duke knew about it, he would definitely die laughing. Are you a mere mortal trying to speculate on the Protoss? Well, Mara can also be considered a Protoss. The body of the Protoss is not exactly the same as that of a mortal, and in addition, Mara controls water. This caused her to be abnormally watery, and her legs looked no different from a human being with a perfect body, which then led to Natasha's misjudgment. But in fact, she is not anymore. After staying in the dark sea in the center of the earth for a week, the vacation was over, and everyone returned to the present world. This time, Duke made an exception and allowed them to bring back the beast meat. For example, Mr. Wayne, who was particularly fond of the plate-toothed rhinoceros, made a big one and prepared to go back and freeze it. He would take a piece when he wanted to eat. After all, he couldn't come here often. Natasha wanted to take some meat away, but Duke flatly refused, euphemistically calling it no. What a joke. If she brought it back with her temper, she would have given it to the bumpkins, and then it would fall into the hands of Hydra. Although Hydra is a mosquito to Duke, it may be crushed to death at any time. Although it doesn't matter if it creates a genetic soldier, and it is not a threat to him, he just doesn't want to do it. There is no other reason, just simply not wanting to. Why? But Barton brought back a large piece, which was for his wife and children to try out. He is a loving father and husband. Why can he? Natasha asked. If you have a boyfriend, a son, or a daughter, I can allow you to take a piece, Duke said. Barton was very embarrassed. He really wanted to take it back to his family. Earlier, he wanted to bring them together. With Duke around, there should be no danger, but after thinking about it, he still didn't do that. After all, safety is the most important issue. Aren't you my boyfriend? Natasha blinked. Come on, I'm a scholar. I'm also a scholar, Harvard double doctorate. Can't I? Can a scholar have both a boyfriend and a girlfriend? The widow's sister was deeply puzzled by this, not understanding the context. This widow, Nima, is still a doctor. Duke sighed, rolling his eyes. Go back and watch Shaolin Soccer, he suggested, referencing a meme from 10 years ago. Indeed, Zhou Xingxing's children's shoes still existed in this world. Oh. Duke didn't know, but the widow's sister actually watched it after she went back. What about pretty girls? I am a scholar. She was left speechless. Of course, Barton's abilities are not unlimited. They can only be passed through the hands of his family and must be destroyed immediately if touched by others. On the first day back, Dr. Erskine edited the video and uploaded it to YouTube. Netizens were once again in an uproar. The number of viewers this time was much higher than before. However, the part featuring Mr. Wayne was cut, as requested by Batman. Although the outside world couldn't obtain detailed video data of the Battle of the Pigeons in Chicago, civilians who stayed in the city to avoid the disaster filmed a lot of valuable footage. The Chicago Pigeon radio station, equipped with many instruments and staffed by brave individuals, captured significant moments. Coincidentally, the radio station was located in the area assigned to the Justice League. Mr. Wayne was also photographed. Those who were observant could see that the people who ventured into the dark sea in the center of the earth were the same ones who participated in the battle between the two cities. By comparing body shapes, it was evident that one of them was Batman. Batman has many enemies. Not just him, but also Catwoman, Diana, and Damian were not on camera. Otherwise, what's the point? Barry Allen was fine. He still wore the Flash uniform and wasn't afraid of being photographed. The X-Men were even more indifferent, as they had long been known to the public. Masked superheroes can be frustrating. After seeing the YouTube video, Bucky immediately became angry and called his good friend. Steve, you are so mean. Why didn't you call me for such a good thing? I did call, but you didn't answer. Captain America replied with a smile. Fuck! Bucky was very depressed. He remembered several missed calls from Steve. Hey, let's not talk about it. It's all sad. Maybe I was on a mission? I didn't even have time to participate in the Battle of New York or the Battle of the Chicago Pigeons. The American team had been recalled by Nick Fury, and Bucky was used as a backup to fill in the S.H.I.E.L.D. Agent Field team, still in Melinda May's group. As a result, when the battle between the two cities broke out, Bucky happened to be on another mission and couldn't come back. Did you bring me something? If you didn't, you would be too sorry for me. You guys left after causing a mess, but I was the one cleaning it up. This week, I've dealt with a lot, including the Shatari virus incident, Bucky sighed. Ha ha! Steve laughed, appreciating Bucky's concern. Don't worry, I've left you a long-necked camel. End of this chapter. Chapter 278, Giraffe? What is that? You mean giraffes? Bucky asked, bewildered. Giraffes can't be eaten. They're protected animals. We have to defend them. But you're the captain. Giraffes, not giraffes, Captain America corrected. In the late Cretaceous period, animals from North America entered South America. Rodents and primates mixed with similar animals in South America. Glyptodons, sloths, and small armadillos were more successful when mixed. Oh, by the way, the slippery beast is a long-necked camel. Who am I? Where am I? What did I just hear? Bucky was utterly confused. Did I fall behind in learning after 50 years of sleep? But you, Captain America, haven't you slept for 60 years? We're pretty much the same, right? Why didn't I understand a single word you said? Are you showing off to me? Are you a master of learning? I'm sorry, I'm a scumbag, Bucky said, his hair disheveled. When did you start studying these things? We never learned about them before. I'm also a scumbag. Duke told me this. Oh, Bucky understood but still had some doubts. He also slept every day, waking up every 2 to 30 years and then continuing to sleep. Is this the horror of the god of law? Yes, fashion requires profound knowledge. By the way, how long ago? Bucky asked. It is said to be the Pliocene, which is 258 million years ago, but this thing can be traced back to 700 million years ago, and the fossil record was lost 1 million years ago. Bucky smiled. It seems that this is another creature that was eaten to extinction by humans. 80 or 90%, Captain America replied. He knew that the earliest remains of human existence in South America were about 1.5 million years ago. Isn't this just right? It took humans about 5,000 years to spread all over South America. Giraffes in South America? Needless to say. What does it look like? A long-necked camel. Is it a camel, the ancestor of camels? Bucky asked. Aren't camels in the desert? Did they also run from South America? It is the last member of the ungulates unique to South America, at the end of the breed lineage. As for the appearance, it seems to have no hump, but a camel with a short trunk. They are not related to camels or proboscises. And the giraffe didn't leave any descendants, so I don't know what species it is like today. It's like a collection of alpacas, giraffes, and elephants. Maybe the appearance is somewhat similar to today's tapirs, but it's taller than them, not as fat as tapirs, Captain America explained. Okay, keep it for me when I come over. Are you going back to the hut now? Bucky asked, referring to the Wish Hut. No, I've moved out. I'll send you the address. Captain America couldn't stay in the hut anymore. The last incident left a psychological shadow. When he was chatting with Peggy, Duke suddenly appeared, making him tremble with fright and feel ashamed. If this happened a few more times, he might wither. Although Duke flashed for a while and never appeared again, there was always a psychological shadow. He always felt that when they were doing something, Duke was watching the live version. Although this matter really cannot be avoided, changing the house could at least reduce the psychological shadow. Got it. I'll be there soon. After receiving the address, Bucky replied quickly. You have no mission? Don't you give me a day off? Okay, soon. Bucky drove his domineering Dodge Tomahawk, roaring down the road. The super domineering motorcycle made pedestrians pull over. Bucky's punk-style leather jacket, nail-stitched attire, and mask with a skull smile scared everyone away. The effect of exorcising evil was first class. 301, this is it. Bang, 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 he knocked on the door. Coming. It was Peggy Carter who opened the door, and Bucky smiled when he saw her. Oh, sister-in-law, good to see you. Peggy Carter rolled her eyes. Bucky walked back into the room. The slippers are by the side, he said. Oh, Peggy replied. After Bucky had Ned, Peggy suddenly appeared with an air freshener and sprayed him, especially focusing on his feet. Bucky was speechless. I am your elder brother. Do you know that? How dare you do this to me? He thought. But he decided to let it go. Forget it. Forget it. Good men don't argue with women, he muttered to himself. Besides, his feet did smell bad. He hadn't had a proper rest in the past few days, constantly running around dealing with the static virus, the Chitauri armor theft incident, and some villains who had gotten their hands on weapons. He was exhausted and hadn't had a chance to wash properly. "Where's Steve?" he asked. "He's cutting fruit in the kitchen," Peggy replied. Bucky laughed and lay down on the sofa. "By the way, Carter, I really didn't expect you two to get together. Back then, I honestly didn't believe you could last for 60 years. I never thought. You are amazing." He gave her a thumbs up and then clapped his hands in applause. Peggy rolled her eyes. In the original plot, Peggy Carter had been desperate. After searching for years with no news, she had thrown herself into her work to numb the pain. Eventually, she had found a male banker. But things were different now. Duke had told her that Steve would reappear in 60 years, and she believed him. Duke's strength and knowledge were undeniable. Initially skeptical, Peggy had investigated and found out that Duke had been in New York since the end of 1919. Karajan still stood as proof. His registration information from 20 years ago showed him as 20 years old, and nearly 20 years later, he still looked the same. The fact that he was a magician, possessing countless mystical knowledge, convinced her. So she waited and waited and waited until she was old, and Captain America did reappear. With that belief, she persevered, even though the process was exhausting. She didn't dwell on the fact that she was over 80 years old when Captain America reappeared. She was just happy to see him again. Peggy's thoughts were interrupted as Steve came out with a plate of cut fruit. "You've really become a good man at home, haven't you? You don't do all the housework, do you?" Bucky joked, picking up a piece of fruit and putting it in his mouth. It tastes very good. Wait, what is this?" After eating, Bucky realized that the color and appearance of the fruit were unfamiliar. "I don't know. Instructor Diana named it red and green fruit," Steve said. Looking at the half-red, half-green fruit, Bucky's curiosity was piqued. "Is this really straightforward?" "Cough, cough. Don't tell me. This is a fruit from millions of years ago, right?" "Otherwise, what do you think?" Steve replied with a grin. End of this chapter. Chapter 279. There is a conspiracy. "Bring me a complete one," Bucky said, staring at the purple-skinned fruit in front of him. It was about the size of a normal apple but looked like a mangosteen with its outer skin peeled off, revealing purple petals. "Are you sure this is a fruit from 250 million years ago?" Bucky asked, clearly confused. "Not certain," Steve replied. Why don't I remember any fruit like this from 200 million years ago?" Bucky continued, scratching his head. "Are you crazy? How lucky would a fruit have to be to become a fossil? But it did grow alongside long-necked camels." Steve shook his head. Since his last return, he had picked up some paleontology knowledge in his free time. The dark sea in the center of the earth was indeed very strange, as if it were a fusion of creatures and plants from different periods. Moreover, most of them were much larger than normal ancient creatures, and their appearances had changed significantly. In short, the dark sea in the center of the earth was very peculiar. It's difficult for fruit to become a fossil, just like animal flesh eventually decays. So we often see bone fossils, but not meat fossils. The core might become a fossil, but there's a high probability it will rot since it's wood, Steve explained. "Tastes half sour, half sweet. This is really a strange taste. I thought I was born in a magical world," Bucky said, shaking his head. He wasn't interested in the details, he just wanted to eat. "Isn't this the magical world?" Captain America quipped. Bucky shook his head and bowed in silence, focusing on his meal. They had roasted camel meat and stewed camel soup. "It still tastes like camel, but it should be more delicate," Bucky commented. He didn't find it particularly delicious, just novel. He would rather eat pork. "By the way, there's no virus, right?" Bucky suddenly realized. "If there was, I wouldn't have given it to you." Steve was speechless. Why ask after eating all the food? "It's been tested, don't worry." "That's good. It's not that I'm worried, but the recent canned disease has been raging too badly." "Hey," Bucky sighed. The captain didn't interrupt. The spread was indeed serious, and it had reached the United States. People had to wear masks when going out. Fortunately, he was Captain America and immune to toxins. "Forget it, let's not talk about it. How is your mission going?" Steve asked. If there's anything you can't say, forget it. Bucky wiped his mouth. There's nothing I can't say. I feel there's a conspiracy in this matter. Conspiracy? What do you mean? Peggy Carter frowned. The static virus spread too fast this time, and it seems someone is behind it. 4 companies participated in the recovery of the Chitauri corpses. SHIELD, the military, Osborne Enterprises, and Stark Industries, along with some scattered contractors. The main problem lies with these scattered small contractors. Many workers took away parts of the armor, causing the static virus to spread throughout New York, Bucky explained. Peggy Carter frowned. How did those scattered contractors get involved? I heard it was led by Alexander Pierce. Him? Captain America frowned, and Peggy Carter looked thoughtful. The reason is that there were too many Chitauri, and the recovery couldn't be completed in a day or two. The more time it took, the more likely problems would occur. Therefore, considerable manpower and material resources were collected, and the recovery was completed within 2 days. Bucky continued. Captain America nodded. That seems reasonable. Yes, but these corpses, armor, etc., would be more dangerous if exposed to the outside for even 1 more day. First, we don't know whether those Chitauri corpses have toxins, and whether they will cause immeasurable disasters after they rot. Secondly, those armors and weapons are also easy to be scrambled for. The armor is one thing, but the weapons. If this technology falls into the wrong hands, it will be another ordeal. Therefore, the recovery time is critical. However, this only seems to be fine on the surface. Steve keenly sensed that there might be something wrong here. First of all, why did Alexander Pierce bring those retail investors into the market? Doesn't he know that retail investors are difficult to control? Second, there doesn't seem to be a sound set of recycling strategies either. This makes it easy for people to steal weapons right under their noses. After all, there is no specific count of the Chitauri who invaded New York, and it would be impossible to notice if a few hundred were missing. Peggy Carter suddenly realized that this might have been done on purpose by Alexander Pierce. But why? Thinking back to the nanny who tried to assassinate her, she suddenly realized that S.H.I.E.L.D. was most likely infiltrated by the enemy. Given her identity as a veteran of S.H.I.E.L.D., it was unlikely she had made enemies with outsiders. Could it be Hydra? Reflecting on Alexander Pierce's various strange behaviors, she suddenly realized that he was the key. She gave Steve a little push. Alexander Pierce has a problem. Why do you say that? Steve asked in surprise. From the assassination attempt on me, to the deliberate transfer of you to the field team, and now his contradictory behavior, it is impossible for a smart leader to act this way. I suspect that Hydra has infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. even. Peggy Carter hesitated, unable to voice her worst fear. She worried that S.H.I.E.L.D. had been firmly controlled by Hydra. You were assassinated? When did this happen? Bucky was surprised. Wait, haven't we destroyed the remnants of Hydra? Bucky had been frozen for 50 years and had only been active for 5 years since he went out to find the U.S. team in 1945. During those 5 years, they had been searching constantly, with remnants of forces assisting Peggy Carter in hunting down the Red Skull. After 3 years of purges, the last stronghold had been completely wiped out. If one head is cut off, 2 more will grow. Peggy was silent for a while. It seems that what we cleaned up was only the part of Hydra led by the Red Skull, not all of Hydra. There are other unknown factions lurking all over the world. Bucky was shocked. You don't mean to tell me that Alexander Pierce is a Hydra agent? It's not impossible. Damn. Steve sighed. If this is the case, then we will be at a severe disadvantage. I will try to test Nick Fury. What are you testing him for? Bucky was confused. We were just talking about Alexander Pierce. Fury and Alexander Pierce are old partners. The reason Fury became the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. was because of Pierce's recommendation, Peggy explained. You suspect they are working together. Oh God, this can't be happening, Bucky said, shaking his head. End of this chapter. Chapter 280, Sky. By the way, you can go to Duke. I always think he must know something, Bucky suggested. Steve shook his head. He used to be my instructor, and I know his character very well. He's the type who will never make a move until the critical moment. Like during the Battle of Two Cities not long ago, he only acted at the last moment. Even if he knows something, He won't take the initiative to get involved and might even sit back and watch the situation unfold. Peggy Carter also shook her head. Duke doesn't see these things as his responsibility. Maybe he believes that if it's not his position, he shouldn't meddle in it. You two really are a couple, Bucky said, curling his lips. He was hit with another dose of their synchronized behavior, both shaking their heads in the same manner. By the way, our team has a new colleague. She joined not long after you left. Who? Steve asked. Her name is Sky, and she's a very powerful hacker. She even managed to breach S.H.I.E.L.D.'s defenses. If we hadn't been prepared, we wouldn't have caught her. I'll try to find her and see if she can uncover anything. Bucky stood up, picked his teeth, and walked towards the door. As he reached it, he remembered something else. Oh, right. I guess you'll be taking over my task soon. I have a tricky mission here, and I can't afford to delay it any longer, Bucky said. What happened? Captain America asked. The Centipede Project, a project carried out by an unknown transnational underground organization. They intend to use a certain virus as the basis to create mass-produced superpowered soldiers, Bucky explained. Need help? Captain America offered. I won't refuse if I need it, but right now I only have some clues. The information is still incomplete. For now, I can handle it alone, Bucky replied, laughing and patting Captain America on the shoulder. Instead of worrying about me, you should worry about yourself. If Alexander Pierce is really the leader of Hydra, you're in more danger. Peggy Carter suddenly asked, Is it possible that the underground organization is also Hydra? It's hard to say. I'll let you know when I have more specific information. If that's all, don't bother seeing me off, Bucky said, opening the door and leaving. He stepped onto his Dodge Tomahawk and roared away. They had locked onto a target, Michael, the Death Warrior. That underground organization was indeed a branch of Hydra. The special toxin they were using was the extremis virus, the same one from Iron Man 3. Created by Dr. Aldrich Killian of the Institute of Advanced Conceptual Mechanics, the company had been destroyed by Tony Stark in the original plot. However, the extremis virus had leaked out and was now controlled by a larger transnational underground organization, including Hydra's Centipede organization branch. This virus acted on the central nervous system, not only granting people immense strength, but also allowing damaged wounds to repair themselves. However, the unresolved side effect was that it could cause the body to explode at high temperatures. Iron Man 3 had not yet occurred, but the extremis virus had leaked out first. What was going on? Duke was curious. Unbeknownst to him, it was entirely because of his existence that Dr. Aldrich Killian sought help from an outside force. The result was that the transformation ability of the Centipede Project was realized ahead of Iron Man 3. In a coffee shop, Sky was holding a notebook in a booth, staring angrily at the person in front of her. You asked me out, but you were late. I punish you with 3 drinks. Bucky twitched. 3 cups of coffee? This Starbucks was quite expensive. It wasn't that he couldn't afford it, but the quantity was huge. 1 cup was 300 milliliters, and 3 cups would be 900 milliliters. After drinking that much, his stomach would be in agony. Don't ask me to do something if. You don't drink. Sky smirked, standing up and hugging her notebook as if she were about to leave. Hey, wait a minute, I'll drink. Bucky quickly responded, downing 3 cups of coffee in one gulp, feeling like he had just swallowed a mouthful of Starbucks. That's more like it. Sky smiled and sat back down. Tell me, what do you want from me? Bucky took out a shielding device, causing Sky to gasp and become visibly excited. Even the jammer has been taken out. This must be a big deal, she exclaimed. It is a big event, but I don't know if you dare to accept it, Bucky replied. For me, Sky, there's nothing I wouldn't dare to do, she said confidently. Okay, great, Bucky applauded. I need you to investigate this person. The more detailed, the better. He took out a photo and pushed it in front of Sky. Who is this? She asked. Alexander Pierce, direct supervisor of S.H.I.E.L.D., Minister of the Security Council, Bucky whispered. What? Sky's hair almost stood on end in shock. She had the guts to investigate S.H.I.E.L.D., but the top boss of S.H.I.E.L.D.? This was something else entirely. She felt a mix of fear and excitement. What's the problem with this man? She asked, her curiosity piqued. Why don't you ask? It's also for your own good. Remember, don't leave any clues. I can only tell you a little bit. Don't you want to save your friend Michael? Finding out about him may be the key, Bucky explained. With that, he stood up, checked out, and left. Skye was not yet a member of the S.H.I.E.L.D. team. At best, she was an outsider. Therefore, Bucky didn't fully trust her. Moreover, S.H.I.E.L.D. was now like a sieve with the danger of being infiltrated by Hydra. Even the comrades around him couldn't be trusted. Phil Coulson, to put it bluntly, except for his good friend Steve, Bucky even had reservations about Peggy Carter. While at Steve's house, he hadn't told the whole story. Although it seemed that Peggy Carter was on his side, who could guarantee that she hadn't been brainwashed by Hydra? After all, she had been in S.H.I.E.L.D. for 50 years. How could she know nothing about it? He felt that Peggy Carter had reservations, but he couldn't remind his friends. Forget it. Let's wait until the investigation of this matter comes to light and see the situation. Steve did not receive a notice of a change in mission, but instead got an order from Nick Fury, asking him to save a large ship. Captain America the Winter Soldier was about to unfold. Of course, Rumlow and his team of Hydra were still sent out to join the mission with Captain America, and the Black Widow was also there. So it's not off course, it's a non-fa invasion. I hate always having to clean up Fury's mess, Steve grumbled. Relax, someone reassured him. How many pirates are there? Steve asked. 25. Top mercenaries, led by George Bartok, came the reply. End of this chapter.